Testing, 1, 2, 3.
So
Perfect.
Can you come and go?
We can hear you good. Can you hear us all right?
We can hear you great.
Okay, great. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We'll be to your point, or to your part here in just a couple minutes, hopefully. Board President, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right,
Are you hitting go?
I'm gonna press the magic button and let...
Recording in progress.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Swearing in of elected officials.
You'd like me to take care of this for you?
It says, I can read.
Yes. So, congratulations to our 3 elected directors. We've talked about this a little bit, but as is our custom, we use this opportunity, since you've been recently elected, to swear you in using this revised swearing-in statement that we edited and produced a couple years ago. So, if it's all right with everybody, I guess I'm gonna swear you in. It's a nice little formality to your office, taking this important position. So, I state your own name.
I,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
The Constitution and laws of the State of Oregon.
the Constitution and laws of the State of Oregon,
And the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District.
and the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District,
And that I will faithfully and honorably conduct myself
and that I will faithfully and honorably conduct myself
in the office of the Board of Director position,
in the office of the Board of Director position,
to which I have been elected to the best of my ability.
to which I have been elected to the best of my ability.
All right, thank you very much.
So, am I supposed to do it as Susan, parentheses Sue?
I think either or is fine too.
Because it just says Sue.
We know who you are.
Yeah,
Can I borrow your
we do.
Declaration of potential conflict of interest, Kyle.
None.
Sue.
None.
Celeste. None. Mike.
None.
None. Moving on. Public comment.
Just double check our sheet outside and online. Do you want to say that? Great. So, the only guests that we have online are a part of our presentation. So I don't think we have any public comments tonight.
I did not see any correspondence in the packet. If you have anything.
We do not.
Okay. Recognition of the SEPRD Employee of the Month, Mr. Calvin Goodman, who is not currently present. Calvin has been an incredible asset to our after-school and summer camp programs. Even while finishing high school, he remained committed to supporting and engaging with our kiddos every day. Over the past few months, we've seen tremendous growth in Calvin's ability to manage groups and build meaningful connections with the children. He's quick to step in wherever help is needed and always brings a positive can-do attitude. Whether it's jumping into a game of tag or bonding with campers over Pokemon, Calvin shows up with energy, heart, and dedication. We're so grateful to have him on our team, and he is one of my children's favorites. Thank you, Calvin. He can do well.
It's very solemn.
Yes. He's a shy guy, which I think is probably why he's not currently here to receive his certificate and his gift card. But thank you, Calvin. Hold on. STC presentation from FCS.
All right, we have our guests here from the Bowman Group, Doug, John, and Luke, I think. Doug, do you want me to allow you to share screen, or are you going to share your slides that way, or how do you want to do that?
I would be happy to share my screen. I think someone on that end needs to turn on sharing.
Okay, it should work.
Perfect.
Should work now.
Yep.
do you, want to do a short, little introduction for us, or maybe you already have that as part of your slides, so your show now.
All right, well, I will turn it over to John Gillarducci.
Thank you, Doug and Skylar and board. I'm John Gillarducci. I'm the principal on the project. You heard first from Doug Gabbard. He's the project manager, and in a minute you'll hear from Luke Nelson, who did most of the heavy lifting and analysis. Slide, please. So the way that we've set this up, I'll spend some time on the characteristics of system development charges, a little bit of time on the legal basis and summarize the statute, and then we'll walk through the SDC calculation. We'll do that, and then we have some comparisons for you with a caution, and then some possible next steps. So characteristics of system development charges. These, as you know, these are the one-time fees paid by new development at the time of development. In some cases, redevelopment pays SDCs when they are increasing their demands on your systems. By law, SDCs are available for water, sewer, stormwater, parks, tonight's topic, and transportation. We can only use revenue from system development charges for capital projects, construction, and we calculate SDCs based on the cost of capital or infrastructure, the investment that you've made in parks over the years and will make over the years. To that end, SDCs include a portion which is a buy-in to any existing system facilities, and then a portion which is looking forward at what's planned, and a portion of those future facilities as well. And then finally, system development charges are intended to represent a share of the big stuff, system facilities, in this case, parks. So we pay very close attention to the ORS, summarized here. This is the SDC law. There are a few key sections in the law. 299 includes, that's 223.299 includes the definitions. 304 is where the real meat of the system development charge law is. That tells us the different considerations we have to make when calculating the two fees that, and I'll talk about those two fees in a minute. You know, sort of what the recipe is that we have to use to calculate the charges. It provides for credits for developers in certain instances. It has the notice requirements. There are requirements that any agency considering a methodology has to provide 90 days notice in advance of the public hearing to adopt that methodology, and that's all in 304. So that's where the meat of the law is. 223.309 tells us what has to be in the capital project list upon which the SDCs are based. And then, let's see, 316 is another rather new section, and this one requires that local governments post their SDC methodology on their websites if they have one, so trying to improve transparency. So enough about the law. The calculation is summarized here. That buy-in to existing facilities, existing system facilities, that's called the reimbursement fee. And when we calculate the reimbursement fee, we're trying to isolate the cost or value of unused capacity in the existing system that's available for future users. It's available for growth. And then we divide that dollar amount by the growth that it will serve, and that gives us our reimbursement fee. The improvement fee, which is what we most often think about when we think of system development charges, that's based on the list of planned capital projects. And if you picture that list, we try to identify capacity increasing portion of each project that will then be available for growth or future users, and the sum total of those growth-related project costs divided by the growth that they will serve gives us our improvement fee. So together, they are the system development charge, some of that share of capacity represented by the system development charge has already been built, and that's in the reimbursement fee. Some of it is to be built in the improvement fee, which is where you'll see the bulk of costs tonight. So with that, Luke will take us through the initial calculations.
Yeah, so starting off, the first thing that we are thinking about with that calculation that we just looked at was how can we measure system demand for the park system? And we want to try and figure out, well, who's using the park system? And that's going to be residents and visitors to the area. So this first slide is going to kind of look at how many visitors are using the park system, or how many visitors are in the area. First, we got the total number of lodging units within the district, the average occupancy rate of those units, and the average party size. And we see that there's 42,260 overnight visitors at any given day.
Wow.
Can I ask you a question? What month are you talking about?
All through the year.
So this is
July
the average of a full year.
So in like July, the average occupancy rate is probably 100%.
I was going to say, it's not
But then-
58.5.
It's probably higher in July in the summer months, and then lower in December and February.
They're rare.
And is this is per day in our district?
Average.
Yeah.
22,000,
No, 42,000 extra people per day.
no, but the
in our
total number of
district.
lodging units says 22,692. That seems-
I've heard a number
That's-
pretty close to that.
I've heard that too,
Really?
in rooms. You're talking
In the chamber.
rooms, and like if I want to rent your house, and your house, and your house, and they're available, that's the kind of thing you're talking about, vacation rentals.
Wow.
And also hotels and more
Right.
traditional
I'm
lodging
just
units.
surprised that it's
And a
so
lodging
low.
unit in that sense is a room, not the hotel as a whole.
Right,
Right.
right.
So per room.
But, so,
I-
the population here is plus or minus about 7,000, right? So,
Yeah,
so are you saying we have almost 50,000 people here per day?
The summer.
Well, more in the summer, because this is
Well,
average.
Well, yeah.
I don't want to jump us ahead, but it says down here it's for 2025. So is that an annual number or a date? An annual number?
At any given time.
Wow, that number is far more robust than I would have expected.
right.
Okay.
Well, and frankly, literally, with Trend West, which is Wyndham, having come in, I would challenge the February, because people come in February, and then you've got the snowbirds that stay in September and October. People come down on vacation, for a break for Christmas, winter
Well,
break.
PBL.
Yeah,
Oh,
PBL,
but because, I mean,
No,
but it's an average.
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
surprised
These are
that
average.
it's low at 58.5%.
Well, as you might expect, there is no piece of paper that says on it, here are the number of lodging units within the boundaries of the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District. So we had to do some calculation estimation, starting kind of at the county level, Luke, if I'm not mistaken, and winnow it down. And so this is kind of the end result of that estimation process.
Yeah, this is the total number of lodging units was given to us via the Smith travel report for the county, and then kind of trimmed in proportion to the population of the district.
Can you,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you pause for just a moment? I'm so sorry.
We,
Calvin.
yeah. We read a lovely thing about you just a little bit ago, but we appreciate
Sorry about
you
that.
being here. Do you want to take this with you?
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really grateful.
I was just working and I was out at 5:30 and I completely stayed, so.
You're
Well,
okay.
we're just glad you're
We
here.
appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is
Have a great night.
well deserved, thank you.
You guys have a good day.
You do.
You too.
I appreciate it a lot. I mean it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
What a great guy.
Not at all.
Mhm.
Okay, so overnight visitors, do we want to move on to growth?
Let's do that.
All right.
Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, so on this slide, we grow that overnight visitors by the same proportion, or the same rate, as we do the population of the district. And that rate is given to us by the Portland State University forecast, and we see that total growth in system users from now until 2040 is going to be about 5,000 new system users.
That's all.
Well, 15 years, 5,000.
I mean, we go from 7,000 to 12, is all.
So the 7,000 number is what Kyle suggested. What,
And that's
the data that they're using says that there's 10,700 residents, and then population projections would be in 2040 to be up closer to 12,000. So that's 1,000 people, and then the other calculation in that is the visitors. So I'm assuming he said they use the same percentage rate. So yeah, a total of around 5,000 more people in 15 years here than there is currently. Are you suggesting that there's going to be a lot more?
I think Seaside has cleaned up their act, you know, from when I was a kid. When I was 6, I would have avoided the city. But when I'm 66 and older, I'd be looking at coming here
Sure.
rather
I
than.
think though, you're looking at a fairly small town that, 1,000 people, like, there's not a lot of places to put an extra 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Or more, you know?
I don't think we have the zoning for 1,000.
For the one.
We have zoned 1,000.
Well, heck,
Yeah,
we just
So,
released 17.
But we have to remember this is for the district, right? So it's
Right.
Warrenton.
The top, it goes beyond
Yeah.
Seaside, yeah.
And I know that there's actually like a very large, housing, development plan in Warrenton. I can't remember quite how big it is, but it's.
I think that one, it's called Fort Point, is outside of the district.
Oh, it is?
But there's
Okay.
a couple other ones, larger growth in the dunes and in the development up here off Ohana that are potentially sizable. Anyways, I think.
Because our
So I
district
have a
goes to
question for
Colby.
Luke. Luke, so you use the same growth rate for residents as you did for visitors?
Yes.
Okay, so help me understand the drivers of that growth rate for those two groups.
So the growth rate that we used for population was just the Portland State University forecast on how they expect to see the population of the district increase over time. There was not a good percentage specifically for overnight visitors, so we tied it to the same, assuming that as residents within the city grows, more people will be visiting residents or just visiting the area as the city grows.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, except the dependent variable is the number of people that are currently here. Okay.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm not quite sure what else you would.
Well,
base
historical data, just see what the growth rate has been historically.
For maybe, yeah.
You know, do a linear regression and figure out where that goes.
I'm all over that. Do we have historical data showing the progression of overnight visitors?
Yeah.
I don't know if we do.
Does the chamber
We-
have something like
We,
that?
we work, to provide Luke with, some, data from the Visitors Bureau, who does keep track of this stuff, and, that's where probably some of this information came from, and maybe from the county too. And I
Absolutely.
don't think there's a more qualified, they're the ones that are tracking it,
Yeah.
for purposes of marketing and for other efforts, so.
Well, and this
And
thing talks about, according to Oregon Tourism Commission, the lodging units are occupied an average of 58.5% of the time. I mean, this is last month's report that explains this. Just,
Okay, I mean, so I guess what I'm hearing is you don't really have a way to calculate that, so you just have to use the growth rate that you have.
that's right. We don't have a way to calculate independently, and so we used a procedure that we also use very, very typically for non-residential development. And so a lot of times, a district will be interested in charging not only residents, but also non-residential development, and we'll get good numbers on the current non-residential development within the boundaries, but there's not a good forecast of future non-residential development. And so we will just use the growth rate for residential development, and we will assume, barring any reason not to, that the non-residential development will grow at the same rate as residential development. And so that's what we're doing with lodging units.
Good.
Okay. So that's how we end up with that almost 5,000 new system users as our growth in system demand. Kind of shifting a bit into the numerator of those two different sections, the reimbursement fee and the improvement fee. We look at the level of service that is being provided by the current park system. So we look at the current quantity, what's expected to be added by the projects in the project list, and the expected quantity in the future. Looking at the number of units that are expected to be in place in 2040 per 1,000 residents, we get the 2040 level of service. Comparing that to what we have and what would be needed now to have that level of service, we see that we would need 36 acres and about 133.6 thousand square feet of special use sites. And then looking at the difference between that and what we have now, and the difference of needed versus current quantities, we get the eligibility that will apply to each of the projects based on whether they're adding acres or square feet. And that's the eligibility that will apply to all of the projects in the improvement list. Additionally, since the current quantity of parks facilities is less than the minimum quantity to meet that 2040 level of service, there's no eligibility for a reimbursement fee.
So just to put this exactly what Luke said into other words, your level of service is going to be going up significantly. So your project list, your quantity of acres is going from 10.3 to 39.3, and your square feet of special use sites from 111,000 to 146,000. That is a far higher growth rate than the actual customer base that we calculated a slide ago. And so we can't put all of that on development. And so the percentages that we calculate over at the right side is the appropriate amount of those projects of and then the rest of it will have to be funded in a different way.
So
Does that make sense?
I have a question, and I don't,
Please.
I mean, first of all, I mean, no disrespect, please. I just have, when I started out in, you know, at Providence, you know, I had a career of 38 years. When we were about year 10, they predicted that all hospitals would close, and that most of the service would move out into the community. Notice it didn't happen. And so they were going to close hospitals or repurpose please help me here, I am wrestling with this. So, people lost their jobs because the projection of build this structure for this function didn't happen, and people still came to the hospital. And the prediction, they had said, your hospitals will close. You will go out, you will satellite your uses. This is a prediction. And of course, the hindsight is it didn't happen. People lost their jobs, and these structures that were built were repurposed, and patients still came to the hospital. And I'm trying to look at, I remember sitting in that lecture hall when this woman was saying, this is what's going to happen. We are going to repurpose the hospital because people aren't going to come anymore. And we're all sitting there, I'm a nurse, like, what? And so not being in the echelon of a board of directors where people were making a decision, I was like, this makes no sense to me. So I'm trying to look at this report and fathom, first of all, I appreciate, like, a loaf of bread went from 30 cents to $2. You know, we have to move with the flow. But I want a level of caution that we're looking at moving to 146,000 square feet, correct? And 39.3 acres of land for our service. Help me understand how we're supposed to go from 10 acres to 39 and still be sustainable. Does that make sense to you, sir?
Oh, I think that's a perfectly reasonable question. And that I'm not going to have a great answer for you, because that question is upstream of the work that we do. So that question, I imagine, would have been addressed in the capital planning process.
Right.
Because we're working off of the district's capital plan. But a totally reasonable question.
One of the things I'm curious about is if there's an impact to the fact that our Sunset Empire Park and Rec District is not the only parks governmental entity in this area. In other words, the city has its own parks and already has an SDC. So is any of that affected by the fact that there's already that there's a separate parks entity, and what we can do as a SEPRD?
As long as the capacity is not accounted for in more than one place. So as long as we don't have projects on our list that some other jurisdiction has on their list, and that development is paying twice for, that would be the primary trick. Beyond that, there is a lot of different ways you could address multiple jurisdictions. So you could kind of jumble all of the level of service together, all of the assets and all of the projects from multiple jurisdictions. That would require a level of cooperation that we don't often find. So there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, but
Yeah.
the most expeditious one is to treat each district as a separate entity for the purpose of the calculations, because at least that's data we know we can get.
My concern would be is that parks already draws down, the city parks already draws down SDCs for, and I assume they had to jump through these math hoops themselves, and, but I don't know.
They do.
But they don't have a parks
But
department.
it's based on city parks only.
We don't even know how much they're spending on cities.
Have you guys
I don't know.
taken a look at the overlapping taxing districts and seen what they charge for SDCs and where those SDCs are going?
The comparisons that we'll show you in a little bit are for other park districts, so we don't, we're not looking specifically at overlapping cities.
Okay.
Celeste, I think, I'm fairly confident, I don't believe the city does have SDCs, but I don't think they have park SDCs.
On
I
the
think they
website,
do.
they claim that they do, yeah, so, the
I believe
SDCs currently are made up of
years
water,
ago-
sewer, parks, and roads.
Are they bundled, like with, road and the other?
Water, sewer.
Yeah, it shows here that the charges, for SDCs for Seaside, water per 3/4 of a unit is $2,873, sewer, $4,882, parks, $1,699, and roads, $444.
Okay. The only other things I would add is, yeah, on the project list, which we're not looking at now, but I think is on a slide or so, none of the projects, those projects have been, evaluated to not have overlapping existing projects with the
To us.
city. Yeah,
Okay.
they are
Okay.
unique, they're, service areas that need, park and recreation services, they're projects that the city is not going to be undertaking, or that we will work in collaboration on at least one of the specific projects with the
Okay.
city. And then, sorry, there was one other thing I was gonna say, but I can't remember, so, thanks, that was,
But this seems like it's basically just a supply and demand calculation, right? So when you calculate the supply, that supply is dissipated by the presence of parks in the city.
Well, that's sort of what I was getting at, right, is whether or not that, and, yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Do we feel ready to look at the projects?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Luke.
Okay, on slide 9 here, we have all of the projects, that were in the project list that are going to be adding, any sort of measurable acres or square footage to the park system. The total cost, and then we apply that eligibility percentage that we calculated in the last slide. Get the eligible cost for all of these projects at about 12,500.
4 million.
Or million, sorry.
But these are growth projects, not for us, for our district.
what do you mean?
These are the projects
These are the
that are on
projects
the
that we
project list
submitted. We
that the
identified,
district
yeah.
is expected to pay for.
North Forty Sports Complex?
That's the only one, yeah. 'Cause that's on city.
We don't
Yeah,
know
all
that.
of these are on land that we don't own, folks, like
No.
I don't understand the question, I guess.
I guess I thought, well, I guess my confusion still goes back to whether it's a city parks project versus an SEPRD
Sure.
district project.
So I think maybe we can just work through these individually, as questions come up. So yeah, we identified that there's areas within our service area or our district boundaries currently that don't have access to park space. And I think it's our goal, or it's a national standard to provide park space, more park space to our community. So a park in the northern end of our district boundaries, somewhere north of Delray Beach but below Sunset Beach where the district boundaries currently end. A park in the eastern part of the district where many of our residents reside. Typically we've used, the new development off of Wahana and, what's that, Cedar? As a, like after Spruce, there's the new development that's on the, east side of Wahana, and those folks don't have direct access to a park space without coming down here. So that was kind of the location, or somewhere in that service, in that area.
You're talking about like a neighborhood park?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, that's what both of those are. The aquatics facilities, I think you're all familiar with that. The sports complex, so yeah, this isn't necessarily, we want to buy the North 40 from the city. This is us being able to invest in that space, and I think we've discussed it before here, but it's anticipated that the city will work with SEPRD to collaborate on what that park looks like. And we would want to have funds available to meet capacity in that park space. So this works out for that. Additionally, on that site somewhere, we would, and have had a lot of community feedback to develop outdoor pickleball courts. And then the other we're calling it a neighborhood park, but really it's the possibility of relocating or building an additional, more serviceable dog park. So that's that last park space.
So these, I just want to make sure I understand, these are new parks that we are committing to adding in between now and 2040. Are we saying that we're going to add a second aquatics facility, or are we upgrading? Does it count that we want to upgrade this one? I just want to make sure I understand.
Sure. I think in regards to your first question, and our friends can correct me if I'm wrong, by implementing SDCs, we're not committing to adding these things. We are saying that these are on our capital plan, and we can work really hard, and once we have funding, it makes it a lot easier to add a neighborhood park on the north side of the district boundaries or whatever. In terms of the aquatic facility, it's my understanding that because we would be increasing capacity or building a new facility, that SDCs could help fund a portion of that construction, that capital improvement cost. Not all of it, because it's going to be quite expensive to replace our current pool, but that the SDCs could help offset that cost.
So I don't want to beat a dead horse, and maybe I'm just not catching this, but I guess one of the things that I would assume have to show this map to whatever, in order to enact the SDC, get the community, and so I guess, I don't know what the SDCs that are currently going to parks right now are paying for. So again,
Talking about the cities? The cities, SDCs?
The city's parks, the seaside parks, SDC, what that's going for. And what I would wonder about is if there's overlap, like if the impression that we're paying for two things.
Yeah, that's
paying for one thing twice.
So I think the other thing that I was going to mention a minute ago, but I forgot, is there's been, I think, pretty good collaboration with the city manager's office on this. He's aware of our project list. We've already started the process of an agreement for them, if the board decides to approve the SDCs, for the city to collect the SDCs on our behalf and pass those on to us. So I think it does get a little bit tricky, but what we're not looking to do is duplicate services provided by the city. So we wouldn't want to build another neighborhood park near Cartwright Park or near Broadway Park. We want to serve the residents that aren't necessarily being served, or in a way that's new and helps increase our capacity to meet their needs.
I know City Council discussed pickleball courts at Cartwright Park, and they were going to do all this fancy work, and then the bathrooms required, tear them down and rebuild, and the expense was so much that it's like everything disappeared, and I've heard nothing more. And I mean, who knows when that might ever come up again, but isn't that competition to us rather than?
Well, I think what Skylar is saying, like, we wouldn't try and build a park next to Cartwright.
Right.
So there could be a pickleball court there, and we can still put a pickleball court somewhere else, and then meeting demand.
Yeah. The last time I heard about that park space was that the city was entertaining bids or proposals to demolish the old hospital or school district administration building, and that's where it laid off. And I think to this point, and Gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
Yeah.
the project list can be edited and adjusted, and, it's not, locked in stone, yeah, for the duration. So if the city did decide to develop pickleball courts somewhere else, and that project could be, changed from our project list or removed in such a way that was still, within the law, within the restrictions. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely accurate. And so let me elaborate a little bit, and John, if you want to chime in, please feel free to as well. A distinction, an important distinction to make between the easy way and the hard way is, do you plan to recalculate and possibly increase your SDC when you change projects? So as long as the answer to that is no, you are free to add or swap out projects any time the board wants to take action on that. There's no real restriction other than that you would still be responsible to assign an appropriate eligibility percentage, because the eligibility percentage, it does control how you collect SDCs, and if you're not going to change your SDC, that doesn't necessarily matter, but it also controls how you spend the money. And so, for example, on the slide you see now, that first line, the new neighborhood Park North, that 11.63% regulates not only the amount of money that goes into the cost basis, it also regulates how much SDC revenue you spend on that park. So as long as you assign an appropriate eligibility percentage, you're free to swap out and change projects at any time. If you're looking to add something that makes you want to increase your SDC, now you're talking more of a full recalculation like we're doing right now, and that requires notice as you're doing in a public hearing. But just the simple swapping out of projects without changing what you charge, that you put that on the consent calendar.
So can I just make sure that I'm understanding, when you talk about other eligible costs, let's just take the first one, for instance, New Neighborhood Park North. Does that mean the $174,000 that you might collect in SDCs is somehow held in reserve, or is restricted funding to be used solely for that project? Or a board-approved project to swap out with it? In other words, I'm wondering what the accounting responsibilities are for tracking.
Oh, sure.
The
That's
SDCs.
totally fair.
Yeah.
So SDC revenue is a distinct color of money. So SDC revenues does have to be spent, especially since we're talking about improvement fees here, which is all we're talking about for this calculation. It must be spent on improvement fee eligible projects. So if you, let's say you're at a point where you have $200,000 in SDC revenue and man, you're ready to spend. Well, you have a number of choices here. If you wanted to construct a project, you have a number of projects that require less than $200,000. Actually, you could put that $200,000 towards any of these projects as long as you get the other funding from another source.
Right. So you'd have to match, for a park, for instance, we have to find 89% of the money from someplace else.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And sticking with the $200,000 example, even if you have $200,000 and the new neighborhood Park North is the only thing you care about building right now, you can only put the $174,513 to that project. That is the portion that is SDC eligible.
Yeah.
And then,
I have a question. So you use the term assign an eligibility percent. Is that assigned or is that calculated?
well, you calculate it and assign it, I guess.
So how did we get to the 11.3%? It says, or 11%, it says, current quantity is less than the minimum, therefore it's not eligible, but it if it's not eligible, why are we at 11.6%?
It is the portion that is available for growth after you cure the existing deficiency.
Okay, so let me process that for a second.
Yes, so it's from slide 8, the previous slide.
Okay.
And
Right, and I'm on slide 8, but it says that the quantity of park facilities is less than the minimum quantity, so no eligibility. There is no eligible reimbursement fee, and then it lists 11%. So if it's not
So
eligible,
you're talking
why?
about two different things there. Those are
Okay,
two different things, careful. So the reimbursable quantity would be non-zero if your current level of service is higher than your future level of service. In other words, if you were degrading somehow your level of service, and your level of service is expected to go down based upon the growth and the project's plan, then from the perspective of the future, you currently have more facilities than you need based upon the level of service that will be achieved in the future, which will actually be lower. And in that case, you would have a certain quantity of facilities that could be considered reimbursable, just because you have more than you currently need. Now, that is not the case for your district. Your district is going sharply up in level of service, and so the reimbursable quantity does not apply to you. And rather, at the other end of the spectrum, we have to be more concerned about the fact that you're building more than we can really equitably put on the backs of development.
can I try?
Does that make sense?
Can I try?
not at all.
Can I try paraphrasing back what, and you tell me if I am hearing you correctly?
Sure.
So there's kind of two kinds of ways that we can get money from SDC. One is through a reimbursement calculation, which means people who build new property are reimbursing us for money we've already spent on capital improvements. There's also planned growth money that they contribute to. So two buckets, either they're reimbursing and buying into the stuff we've already developed and they're reimbursing us, or they're helping fund future anticipated growth, one or the other. And what we don't have enough in capital improvements to ask for reimbursement. We do have enough planned growth to ask for that. That's the 11.63%.
And
Is that right?
to be even more specific on the reimbursement fee, it's not that you're just seeking reimbursement for whatever you spent money on. You're specifically seeking reimbursement for available capacity that is more than you need now, but is available for future users.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they're,
And that
So like if we had overbuilt something.
they're not freeloaders when
Right.
they come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no.
Let's
So I'm still confused by the notion of eligibility. So 11.63% of the new builds for parks areas are eligible. No, wait, of any new development, only 11.63% is eligible for parks. What is the eligibility that I'm looking at?
The eligibility is the portion that development can equitably be asked to fund. Because your level of service is going up, you can't just decide to make your park district so much better and ask the next few units of development to pay for all of that. They can pay for their share, but if you're going to make your level of service higher as your capital plan suggests you attend, then everybody, including the current users, in fact, mostly the current users, have to pay for that.
So is the reason there's such a difference, am I correct in drawing the summary that the reason there's such a difference, that the parks and natural areas is a low percentage eligibility, only 11.63%, whereas
Yeah.
special use space is quite high, 36.24%, is because based on the numbers, we have a greater need for special space than we do for parks.
And you're not constructing proportionately quite as much.
Right,
That level of
That's-
service is not going up as steeply.
I see.
So I'm so confused by this notion of eligibility.
It's what percentage we can ask for.
Of any project.
Well, it depends,
Any
if it's a
project.
park project, it's 11 point, if it's an
No,
outdoor
it's
space
any
project.
building project.
No, the building project is 36.24%.
No,
Private facility.
but this is paid when they apply for a permit.
Retrojecting.
So if they apply for a permit for $1 million house,
Oh, yeah.
then there's,
Eligibility.
yeah, I mean,
It's just the
so they will
calculation.
pay for the parks and the special use sites out of that permit
It's a
fee.
formula, right.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get to the wisdom of the 11.6%, but also how did we get to 11.6?
In what you sent us last month, there's this paragraph, can you help define this for me? It says, in this case, the district plans to have 39.3, so, I'm sorry, it's on page 5 of last month's offer to us. And so it's under eligibility, improvement fee eligibility. And the paragraph before you're looking at Exhibit 4, which is the one we're talking about, it talks about the district plans to have 39.3 acres of parks by 2040, parentheses, 3.36 acres per 1,000 residents, end parentheses. Additionally, the district plans to have 146,172 square feet of special use sites by 2040, parentheses, 12,488.51 feet per 1,000 residents, end parentheses. By retrojecting, a word I've not heard before, the future level of service back to the current population, we can calculate the 35.94 acres and the 10.31 acres, which is, in parentheses, 0.96 acres per 1,000 residents, end parentheses, and the, am I helping to define this, or am I making it muddier? I mean, is that because the current level of service is lower than for the future level of service, eligibility is reduced to offset the deficiency in service level? That makes perfect sense to you, right?
Well, it's a very mathematical explanation, I will grant you that. What we're basically saying is the district's planning to add a bunch of acres, 29. And as a result, the level of service in acres per 1,000, after the list has been executed, that acres per 1,000 is going to be a lot higher in the future than it is now. You wouldn't be so far?
I think so.
Yeah, because the population goes up a little bit and the acres go up a lot.
Exactly. The population goes up a little bit, the acreage goes up a lot. So you'll have a lot more acres per 1,000 in parks in 2040 than you do now per plan. And one thing that we can't do with the SDCs, we can't elevate that level of service. So a lot of those acres we can't include in the improvement fee because that would mean growth's paying more than its fair share of those additional acres. So when we make that adjustment, and the math is what leads to that eligibility percentage, because the district's adding so many acres, and that level of service is going to be so much higher in the future, only 11.63% of each of those projects that adds acreage can be included in the improvement fee. Now, the odd conclusion one could draw here, or possibly, is if the district were adding less acreage. Now, we're not suggesting that you do that. That eligibility percentage would be higher, which would mean you would, for each of those projects, you'd be able to spend more SDC money on each of those projects. But that was something we didn't really investigate in our internal
So the
discussions.
acreage is the denominator.
I think I can help with the understanding if
Calculated
If
growth
you all
is
want to
denominator.
pull out a calculator or your phone, a quick numerical example may help. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And I only came up with 8.5%.
Okay, let's start. We're still on slide 8. The 2040 quantity, let's stick with acres of parks and natural areas. The 2040 quantity, the future quantity, once all projects are built, you're going to have 39.31 acres of parks and natural areas. 39.31. Okay? Put that in your calculator. That's going to be our first number.
Okay.
Now, that's going to increase your level of service. Your park system is going to have a much higher level of service once you do that, because the growth isn't that substantial, right? So on a per capita basis, your acreage is going to be substantial. If you took that future level of service and multiplied it by the current user base, that's the retrojecting, taking your future level of service and applying it to your current customer base. If you were meeting that future level of service now, you would have 35.94 acres already. So I want you to subtract 35.94 from the 39.31. So 39.31 minus 35.94. What do you get?
3.37.
Yeah.
All right. That is what you can ask development to pay for, 3.37 acres. But you're actually going to build 29 acres. So what is 3.37 divided by 29? And that's how that's derived.
So it's helpful to hear, like, so, I mean, this is a question, one thing, and maybe I just missed it, like, I had thought that we were mostly talking about improving our, the facilities that we have and trying to fund some of that through SBCs, as opposed to building out more parks. And so I do have some concern about the idea that, for instance, that we, like, I'll just take the final last thing on here, the growth project, new neighborhood park, that's gonna cost us $1 million, that we might raise $116,000 in SDCs and have to hold on to that and somehow spend our time raising an extra $89,000 or $890,000.
That's the bad news, isn't it?
To get that park built, and I just haven't thought of that as something that SEPRD does. That we would go out and raise 890, because that isn't sort of in our wheelhouse of what we're currently doing. It could, I mean, maybe, I just hadn't thought of it as being part of our plan.
It's not necessarily a priority. We would be looking at our priorities, doing, serious capital projects to invest our money.
And like, I think the dog park is a good example of something that we did talk about, because we thought that space might need to be better used for something else. And so a dog park, that would make sense, that we might look. Or another example of one that we had to do recently was expand the community gardens, right? Because we had space on our current property, we had to go find other space to do that. So one of the things that's taking me a little bit by surprise is sort of the disconnect about adding all of these new parks and putting us in a situation where we're scrambling to raise more money in order to use SDCs for something that we weren't, or at least I didn't have on the radar that we were gonna be doing, so, but maybe that's the partnership with the city or something that they're gonna, I don't know, so the one that makes more sense to me is the community aquatics facility. Those numbers are making sense to me, that through SDCs, that we might be able to raise slightly more than a third of the cost of that expanded facility, through this, and that we'd have to raise the other 2/3 someplace else. That to me is a huge upside for us, because we know that we need a new aquatics. That I know we need, because we've talked so much about that.
Are we in a position where we have to take all, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 6 of those things, because we can only approach the powers that be one time? Or can we say we're gonna do a dog park, you know, number 6 there, a new neighborhood park, and we approach about SDCs for that, get that one done, and then look at the next one? Is there a rule about we have to have a large group, or can we take one at a time?
You can absolutely take one at a time. There is no law that says that you have to build all of these projects. I just learned in the last couple of weeks, there are states where they have a law that says something like that, but not in Oregon. So no, you can take it one at a time.
But you could not spend that money, you hold that in reserve, right? That would be held in reserve.
You have an SDC fund in your
Right.
budget and just collect the money in your
Correct.
SDC fund and then spend it out of that fund? Is that what you create a
Yeah.
special fund?
Yeah.
And then the board would decide, oh, wow, we have, a substantial amount in that SP fund. Maybe this is the time to think about developing one of these, projects. Maybe the priority is the aquatic facility, so that's what we're gonna work.
So
to
we
first.
control that, not
Yep.
another entity?
Yep, it goes right into our budget,
It
right
just-
into our, but we can't commingle the
Builds,
funds, right?
Right.
That's correct. That is correct.
So I think my confusion exists when it says in the text that there is no eligible reimbursement fee, and then it lists in the table a reimbursement fee.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
There is no reimbursement fee.
It lists eligibility.
That's right, that's not the same as reimbursement. A reimbursement is a separate layer of fee that is based upon existing assets with available capacity. There are no such assets for the district, which is why the reimbursable quantities here are 0. So everything that ends up in your cost basis, a number we haven't even seen yet, all comes from planned projects, which is the improvement fee.
So, I'm curious about the reimbursable piece, because, so for instance, the big one that I think of is that we've increased capacity by buying the SRC. And so that's existing citizens purchased that, right, or has, that's, so I'm curious, like, why would that?
SRC is Salem Revised Code, so,
Oh, sorry, our, the old middle school that the SEPRD
I'm with you.
purchased, right, the middle school.
If you go to slide 10, I think,
But that's on, and revising that. So in other words, we paid $2 million, around $2 million for that property, in 2000, I'm so bad with dates, whatever date that was, 2021. So we purchased that fairly recently, that property. And so I'm just curious, like, or the fact that Broadway Field was redone and that new people coming into the community would, so I'm just curious, like, why those are ineligible. And is it because the
on the project list, you mean? Like the
no, as
Reimbursement.
reimbursement for buying in to
Because
the.
we are still below, or is it because we're still below the projected capacity?
I think that might be right.
Your level of service is
That's-
going up.
Yeah.
So you're building a lot, which means that you don't have capacity that is available for future users, because your future level of service is gonna be higher than it is now. So you don't have, and you don't currently meet the future level of service.
So if we met capacity
So that's why
for
that capacity is not available to future users.
Okay.
We haven't even explained this slide yet. Okay, so are we ready to move on to this slide?
Sure.
Okay, so on this, slide 10, in addition to the projects we just looked at where they were adding acreage or square footage to the system, we have this one project at the top here, the new recreation center, that is replacing and improving the current recreation center. So since there's no new square footage being added, it's just making the recreation center more usable, more user-friendly. It's not getting that same eligibility from the level of service. Instead, it's being applied a percentage based on what percentage of users in the future are new. And so that's that growth eligibility from slide 6, or no, I think it was 7, of 8.5%.
So,
So in other words, it's being proportionally allocated between existing and future users.
Okay.
Everybody buys.
it was a
According to their
school.
contribution to the state.
It wasn't a recreation, we didn't have a recreation center.
I know, but it's called a recreation center now.
Right, but
So it's
how-
already existing.
Yeah. If we had done this before buying it,
Mhm.
oh,
yeah.
But it is 100% of the SRC usable right now. So any improvements that we make
Yeah,
to
I
that
think that's-
SRC ought to be eligible.
So, in other words,
That's what he's saying,
Yeah.
8.5% of the,
but we're gaining, it isn't existing square footage that's usable.
But we're gaining square footage.
We are gaining
We're-
square footage. In other
We're
words,
remodeling.
so
square
I don't know
footage.
if you all are aware, so we have the recreation center that we're talking about here, we purchased it. We have had to go through a revised use. It is actually not, what do we call it? We're trying to get our occupancy. It is not, it is not past occupancy with the city yet.
right.
So in some ways, it is new square footage as of right now because it is not usable by us or by citizens for park and recreation use. I'm just wondering if that makes a difference to y'all, if that,
Well,
I mean, we purchased the building, but it is not,
Open to the public.
it is not open to the public at this point.
And there will be additional capital costs required to make those spaces usable.
Well, and I think that's what they're calculating at the
Is that what the
8.5.
8.5 is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
But
think
I'm
that-
just wondering if it could actually be reimbursed at the 36.24 rate if
If those
it's
rooms are
actually
vacant,
new space, if
those
it is
rooms are
new
vacant,
space
then-
for the district.
If we were to approve SDCs and the work that we need to do on the SRC was deferred long enough, we would accrue some money in the fund
Right.
to some proportion could help pay for those corrections,
I
but
think,
we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot on that because we've committed to the SRC already, for relatively little money, but we're still picking away at doing the things that we need to do to bring it up to code to achieve occupancy.
I think Celeste is, just questioning the percentages.
Yes, I understand.
Because it's not existing space at this point. At this point in time, it is not existing space for Park and Recreation District. It's not usable by the public.
I think, though, that, yeah, I mean, speaking of rocks and hard places, yes, you're right. However, I mean, we are using a significant portion of the building. Like, the gyms have gotten a lot of use.
Mhm.
The west, or the eastern half of the building is getting use. So I think.
Well,
as
so maybe
the-
if 50%, would
Sure.
50% of the building
Well,
qualify
as-
with that
Yeah,
36%?
as the qualifying standards were kind of explained to me, the recreation center seemed like it didn't fit into what was classified as new growth. It would fit into more of this just by like the legal standards as I understood them.
Can we allocate the building? Allocate part of it to existing and allocate
Well,
another part to future?
I would wonder what these guys think. Like, the fact that we don't, like, some of the, if we stop, like, if we, as of today, half the building, I'm just using a number, I don't know if that's accurate, but about half of the building is not usable by the public for park and rec.
It's
use.
not authorized to be used.
Right.
The city won't let us.
Right.
use it.
Until improvements are made, until we make this investment, until the investment is made. So it is not an asset that currently exists without further investment.
So, to answer that question, I wanted to make sure it was my turn. So that's something that we could look at. I can't, it sounds like we'd be splitting hairs pretty finely here with regard to trying to figure out how much cost would be to rehabilitate existing square footage, how much square footage would really be new in whatever way we're defining that. So I can't promise that the outcome of that is gonna be of much advantage to you, but we're happy to look at it. We currently don't have the data to do that analysis, so, we would need some more detailed numbers from the district.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do we have that square footage of that?
You should, but I can make sure that I get it to you.
Yeah, and I think we have a consultant that's working with us on that, who is actually the one that is working to figure out how we do get the building into the approved for use and to do all that. And it's costing us quite a bit to do that. And to me, like, the difference between having 36% of those costs eligible versus the 8.5%, I mean, it's a difference of $3 million potentially. It's quite a bit of money. Anyways,
We can look at it.
It seems like it would be worth looking at.
It's a good exercise to kind of see how it would work out.
Can I ask a really dumb, in my opinion, a dumb question? When you make these presentations, are people coming up with the same questions, or do they get it quicker? And I just feel like I'm getting lost and.
There's nothing wrong with these.
I mean, I don't know, it's like,
Well,
I don't understand. I mean, I told Skylar today, I learned something in 10th grade science. It took 41 tries and 3 different teachers to get it through my thick skull. And then it was like, oh my gosh, the light bulb came on. So is your presentation to us kind of, you know, you're running into the same roadblocks everybody comes up with, or am I just behind the 8 ball?
It's tough stuff. So this is it is. We do get these questions, which probably means we need to do a better job of presenting it to you. But it's complex concepts. It's just a lot of math we're throwing at you too. So
I also feel like,
so you're not alone.
as our board, it's reflective of us wanting to be conscientious and transparent and make sure we're understanding
We know as
Yeah.
much about it as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
We're
want to be
gonna
able
have
to
to explain
it to our constituents.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking
I
at
mean, it
slide
would be really
9.
easy to just go, yeah, that looks good.
And having having the citizens go, whoa, why don't you manage what you've got before you branch out? Although the last one, as my understanding is the dog park, that's got support.
Well, so does updating the aquatic facility has support too.
Right,
which is
right,
maybe on here.
but this other stuff, which is really essential for a future, I don't think that, and that's our jobs here is to look for that future and help plan for it. But I see people saying, manage what you have before you get too greedy. And I don't think we're being greedy, I think we're being forward-thinking. But the semantics of that forward-thinking to me, is kind of confusing. And I apologize, I am trying to understand.
I have one other question on slide 9. Is there any kind of requirement to maintain the mix of, park space versus, special use facilities? Like, do you have to maintain that mix when it comes to spending, or do you just have the pot?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
There's no, in each of those categories, their eligibility was calculated separately. And so, no, you're not obligated to maintain any kind of mix.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Great.
So Luke, I think we were mid slide 10.
Okay, so looking at the two parts, the growth project list and these proportional projects, combining those eligible costs together, we have $13.1 million of eligible costs that will be the cost basis for that improvement fee portion.
Okay, so, just a question. Eligible, I mean, you use the term eligible many, many times, and it has different uses, and so I'm a little bit confused. So the eligible cost, that's the amount of recovery of costs that we could recover?
The eligible cost is the product of the total cost and the eligibility percentage.
So that is the portion of the total cost that we are able to say that new growth needs to pay for, and that is their equitable portion of that cost.
So maybe another word would be includable cost. That's the cost, the portion of, like if you look at that growth projects line, of that 39 million, 12.4 million is includable in the improvement fee calculation. Does that help? And by eligible, we mean eligible to be included in the improvement fee.
So, in other words, we can ask of new users, new people who come online, to cover up to 11.63% of the cost of a new park, and up to 36% of the cost of a special use space.
That's right.
Including existing.
No, not that would be the reimbursable one. That's the one, that's the difference, that's the reimbursable. So we're projecting. We're projecting of future costs, right? Yeah. I got it.
And nothing, just to be absolutely clear, nothing gets charged to existing users. Even if you had a reimbursement fee, that would be charged to new development.
Yeah, right.
Okay, just to be clear on that.
Luke, could you go to slide 8 for just a quick second? Because I want to harken back to the question that has come up a couple times, that eligibility percentage. And I see where your confusion is because we've got the reimbursable quantity there to the right of it.
Right.
That percentage of eligibility is the percent eligibility in the improvement fee, and that's not labeled anywhere on the slide. But that's where those percentages will be applied. They'll be applied to the projects on the project list to determine how much of those future projects can be included in the improvement fee. Mm-hmm. They really have nothing to do with the reimbursement.
Right. So that's, I guess, why I was asking, because it seems like the reimbursement, to me, I'm sort of stuck on the SRC, right? Like the old middle school. We increased special use space by, how many square feet is that? 70,000 square feet? 77,000 square feet of special use space when we purchased the middle school, which it seems like that's to me, that's meeting community demand. And it seems like it should either be reimbursable by people coming online, or they should contribute to making it available to the community. Because right now, that full 77,000 square feet is not available to the community. So, yeah, I guess, I'm reverting back to my other thing, that I think we should look at that. Like, is any of that either reimbursable because we've invested in it, in having 77,000 square feet of usable special space, special use space.
So you want
Or-
to allocate part of that building to growth and part of it to.
Part of it to
existing.
growth and part of it to existing. It still may not meet the mark to make it reimbursable. But that's a lot of square footage that we're talking about, and a lot of investment from Park and Rec. So anyway.
And just to clarify on the reimbursement fee, those cost does not get put into the reimbursement fee cost basis because we're looking at individual assets and saying, oh, new development should be paying for part of this facility. It's purely a mathematical exercise.
Right.
It's a mathematical exercise of level of service.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if the level of service is going up, then that means that there is no excess capacity currently.
What's the definition of level of service? Acres or square
Level of
feet?
service is capacity divided by demand. In this case, in parks, it's acres per capita per 1,000 residents.
So in other words, what it's saying is that a community of our size should have a minimum of 133,000, I'm looking at slide 8, 133,000 square feet of special use space. And that we currently have 111.
No, we are not making any judgments about what you ought to have.
Oh.
We are just observing what you do have and calculating what can equitably be allocated to development when you decide you want more.
Oh, I thought that's what the 2,040 units per 1,000 residents was a calculation of what the expected level of service would be.
No, there's nothing here about standards or aspirations or anything.
Okay.
It's just what you do have and what you will have.
Got you. Got it.
Yeah, this is not at all a parks planning
Oh,
exercise.
I see. Okay, I see.
So, and Luke, could you go to, I think it was slide 11.
See, this is where it would have been nice to have a strategic.
Oh, go,
plan
sorry,
first.
it's 10.
No, we're not.
Okay, that new rec center, is that improvements to SRC?
Yeah, correct.
So the 77,000 square feet for the SRC is in the inventory of 111,000 square
Yes.
feet.
Mhm.
And that's what, and you want it there because that actually improves the eligibility for the additional rec center. And this is just improvements to that existing space without any added square footage. And that's how you want that, because that improves the eligibility to the project on the project list.
Oh, I thought the difference was the added
Everyone.
I thought the difference was the added aquatic facility of 34,614.
They're both in the same category
Okay.
in the inventory. So they help each other. Doug, are you following me? Oh, absolutely, right about that, right.
So that's what, yes, you are. So if you remove square footage from the inventory, which is what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
If we remove square footage from the inventory, then it appears like the capital plan is even more aggressive. And that just exacerbates what got you the low eligibility percentages on the growth projects.
Yeah, it makes our percentages worse.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're happy to look at it. We're happy to refine this. I can't promise a favorable result.
It may be an excellent question.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
Do we need to go finish the eligibility at the time? I mean, wrong word, I'm thinking this. do we need to go back and finish, you know, one step at a time and then come back to this?
I don't know what you're saying, sorry.
Can we finish the SRC?
Well, yeah, well, no, finish the,
Strategic plan.
the strategic plan.
No.
No.
We have a capital plan, we have a project list. I mean, ideally, the strategic plan would have been done almost a year ago, and we're hoping that it'll be done almost concurrently with our August board meeting and the public hearing on SDCs, and the board will make a decision at that point. But I think the project list has been available and approved. I think it's been a point of discussion. We have other planning documents that verify the projects that are identified by our community, and community feedback that verifies those projects as well. I know this is a lot to process, but I think we need to remember this is like beyond probably all of our time with the district when this comes to fruition. We're putting some funding in place for the next era of the next 20 to 40 years of the district. And that's how long some of these things take to figure out all of the different moving pieces and funding mechanisms. And when I talk to, we're going to get to some of the examples, but when I talk to colleagues at Willamette Lane and Bend and SEPRD, that's how long it takes. I mean, and those are places with a lot more growth and revenue generating from SDCs that we're going to have. But I think we can do a service to the district by implementing some of these things in place so that we can secure more funding for future projects and growth. And this is something that we've been talking about.
I know, and then you're expressing it very well, and I've been kind of bugging the board for probably over 10 years. I learned that we were one of the only park districts in the state, maybe the only one, that we did not have system development charges in place. And I can easily understand, I mean, what we're arriving at. This is amazing how these consultants we have, these wonderful guys, are putting together this mathematical method, and apparently this method has been tried and true for other districts and other clients similar to us. And what the bottom line should be is going to be an equitable fee for the STC fee to be applied to various kinds of permits that will go into our fund and will build up a war chest for future projects. And if we had done this 10 years ago, we would be in a slightly different financial position on different things, such as the SRC and,
Is there a reason why that didn't happen?
Well, you know who some of the people on the former board were. I'm not going to mention any names.
It's a process.
But,
It's a process that takes a lot of investment by the board, and time, staff time, and we had, I don't know if Doug or Luke was with FCS at the time, maybe they were, but I know we had John on a Zoom call, probably in 2018 or 19, and he presented this to the board, and I thought it went really well, and the board decided that this was not the right time for SDCs to be considered by the district, and that was the decision at the time. But again, I think so it's a topic that has been brought up a lot by Mike over the years, and something that other cities, other park and rec agencies, other local governments are using as really one of the only ways to capture growth and capture some additional revenue for projects and for meeting the demand in your area that we have in the state. There's not a lot of other funding mechanisms that are tried and true that we can utilize.
That money will be very important for, and it will require other grant applications and other types of funding to come together for some of these projects.
Probably expecting
But
up to him, but
this is for our own protection and for the future stability of the district.
Well, I think one thing that hasn't been made clear is this protects our current taxpayers.
Yeah.
This takes some of the future burden off our taxpayers so that they don't have to shoulder all of this
we wouldn't have to go out for a bond,
Maybe not, yeah.
or the bond would be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
All right, let's go ahead on slide 11.
Okay, so now we're gonna kind of combine everything, put it together and get to the actual fee that would be charged, the total system development charge. So we take that $13.1 million, that is the amount that we can reasonably apply to new users. We add in just under $100,000 in compliance costs, that were calculated based on, the expected amount of, the expected cost of recalculating and retooling these and, kind of managing these SDC funds. And then we divide that total cost basis of $13.2 million, by the growth in system users of under 5,000, from slide 7. And we end up with a total system development charge per person, per new system user of $2,660.
So if somebody, proposes to build a house, and the number of people per household, what was it, 3.3 or something like that?
Yeah.
Next slide.
So then, that number is multiplied by the number of people per unit, right?
Yeah, the average on
Okay,
every.
okay.
This table here shows how the chart would actually be applied.
Yeah, I do get a little, I have a little sticker shock, I gotta say, that cost per SDC, that would show up as SDC fees in addition to it already says parks for a single, I think this is for a single family, it's already $1,699, and then we're adding on top of it $4,679 for single family dwelling. That's a heavy investment in parks. And I'm just thinking again about the conversations with constituents.
You have a lot of policy choices, you have a lot of flexibility, which I will be explaining. Let's see how the rest of these numbers shake out.
Okay.
We'll be happy to explain that.
So, and you guys are experts, and I'm just gonna assume the math is the math. But why would a mobile home pay twice as much as an apartment or a condo?
They got that. Go ahead.
Oh,
Get
just
this slide
because the number of
12.
people involved?
Yeah. Go ahead, Luke, or whoever is gonna
Yeah.
take slide 12, because.
You wanna take it, Luke?
Well, I had that same question, and they explained it in a way that made it understandable, comprehensible for me.
Sure. So looking at this table on the screen now, this is kind of the fee schedule that we have, where there's a couple different options being listed here. But the main thing for each line, we found the number of system users that are attributable to that type of development. And we did that through census data. So if we look at that first line, single family dwelling unit, by census data, the typical single family dwelling unit has 1.76 occupants in it. To get the parks SDC per unit, we take that 2,263 from the last slide, multiplied by the 1.76 to get that total fee per unit of development.
So the answer to the question, why does mobile home pay so much more, is that the census data says that the occupancy is higher. Now, of course, with mobile homes, the sample size is smaller, but that's what it is.
Does the law allow us to create Exemptions,
Say more.
so for example, we wanted to protect
Like
low-income
low-income.
people.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question.
So, you know, somebody with an income of less than $40,000 a year, or 50, well, you know, pick a number, poverty rate, whatever, can we exempt those people from, I know there's a lot of risks involved in that, but.
So this is something we could have a whole other meeting about this question, and a lot of cities have. So let me give you a couple of quick points, and John, I certainly invite you to chime in and add to this. I'll just say two things. Number one, there are already statutory provisions that, in certain cases, usually involving multifamily housing, that affordable housing can be given a partial or full waiver of SDCs. And if anything that you do falls into those statutory provisions, that's a get out of jail free card, and you can use those provisions with no further concern. Of course, a lot of what cities and districts want to do fall outside of those provisions, and our recommendation is that you can kind of do what you want if you bring money to the table. So if you can, what we would call backfill the SDC with non-SDC monies from the district, and essentially the district would be paying part or all of the SDC on the developer's behalf. But the SDC fund would remain whole, which means that everyone else who paid into the SDC fund would then ultimately get kind of the infrastructure that they were paying for. Otherwise, it could be interpreted as you're kind of harming those who paid full price.
Yes, picking
Does that
winners.
make sense?
Yeah, picking winners and losers. So if a development goes in and they're gonna put in, I don't know, 50 houses or something, and I know that probably isn't gonna happen anytime soon, but can we ask the developers and say, hey, instead of paying an SDC, why don't you just put in a 2-acre park?
Oh my, so now we're talking credit, baby. So that's a whole other conversation all by itself. But, so yes. Okay, so now we're talking about credits, and when a developer applies to their development, you can condition their approval for what the SDC statute would call a qualified public improvement. So there could be something, this is really common in transportation SDCs, but it's also fairly common in parks. You can ask them to build something on the SDC list, but if they do, they are entitled to credits for that portion of the project that is greater than the capacity needed by the applicant's development itself. So what we might generally call the oversized portion. So now that is not to be confused with eligibility, because that is a separate calculation entirely. And it's a little easier with parks than it is with some others, but it's still more complicated than we want to do numerically here. But you would give them credits against their SDC for building that facility. It's entirely possible, and the statute has provisions for, a case where you ask them to build something so big that their credits are greater than the SDC they would have had to pay. So that comes up. But you can condition the construction of an improvement on the SDC list, and as long as that's a legitimate exaction, you just have to give SDC credit for the portion that exceeds what is needed for that particular development, and that calculation shows up nowhere as easy. fly, that's a separate fee.
Right.
Does that, am I scratching
Yeah.
where you itch
No,
on that?
Yeah,
that's perfect,
yep.
that's perfect, yeah.
That one made sense.
But that's like SEC 201. This is your first SEC, and we're trying to ease you into this. But yeah, I mean, the situation you're talking about absolutely does happen.
And, I think it's, I guess, important to note that even though what's represented on the screen, what you shared before in our conversations, Doug, is that this is the maximum allowable SDC that we can capture. But the board,
That is exactly right.
the board by their discretion can choose a different, nothing more than this, obviously, but a lower amount to capture. So if the board feels
But not,
uncomfortable,
but not like it has to stay proportional,
Correct.
right? Like the
That's their
mobile home still has to be
recommendation.
a 2.75, whatever,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so maybe this is a good time to have that conversation then. Yeah, what Skylar said is absolutely right. What we calculate, our role in this process is to tell you the most you can charge without getting in trouble. And that is the law's perspective. The law wants to make sure you don't overcharge development, and below that, you kind of do what you want, as long as you do it similarly to everybody. So, if you wanted to charge, let's say you have a family dwelling unit charge of $4,600 as we've calculated it, and you look at that and you say, yeah, I don't think the market will bear that here. I think we got to charge less, maybe half of that, maybe $2,300 per single family residence will apply. Completely within your prerogative to do that. If you do that, then you would want to reduce all of the other SDCs by the same percentage. In other words, the percentage discount should be kind of applied across the board. Now, beyond that, now that's the easy part. The additional flexibility and choice that you have is we are now just coming back to this lodging unit charge. And remember, a lodging unit is a room. It's a hotel room, potentially. And so if a hotel came to town, if you charge this full SDC, you would be essentially asking them for almost $5,000 per room, which I don't think anyone would do lightly, right?
Yeah.
So now there's actually two choices that you have to make. If you want to charge lodging units, then they should be subject to the same kind of percentage discount that you do for everybody else. So if you want to do single family at half strength, then your lodging unit charge should also be at half strength. But beyond that, you could make a decision that actually logically comes before that choice, and that is you can answer the question, do lodging developments really add to demand for parking facilities? If the answer is no, then you don't have to charge lodging units at all. If the answer is yes, then you can charge lodging units, but you will need to keep them in proportion to their demand as we have done it here, showing it at full strength. So I'm going to pause there, let that marinate, and see if you have any questions about what I'm saying so far.
I'm trying to understand the fee structure that we put in for, patrons walking in the door. There was enough pushback that we changed some of that. We altered it. And now we're coming back to say, now are we...
But this is for new.
Yeah, but is this money coming through city tax, so they aren't gonna say, oh,
Only
I'm
if they're
not
building
paying it?
Only if they're building a new house.
Yeah.
or building a
When they
hotel,
go to
or
get
building,
the permits to build their, whatever they're
I think
building,
it's gonna have a pillow
it's
inside.
gonna list all of their fees that they have to pay
yeah.
to build that, to get their permit.
So it's only, so I won't have to pay any more on
Right.
my taxes unless I build the ADU that my husband and I are talking about building on our property, then I have to pay SDC.
It's
To add a new
For
unit
one
permit
dwelling unit.
through the
for
city.
one dwelling unit.
Yeah.
A lot of times your permits, like for sewer and water, they count the number of bathrooms you've got, you know,
Mhm.
how many kitchens, so like a hotel
How many
room.
fixtures you
What
have.
if they're building suites, you know, so you've got possible, you know, larger occupants in a lodging, you know, depending on the suite. But basically, the city's gonna look at that hotel and say, well, how many rooms, how many bathrooms, you know, what's the
They're gonna do the
occupancy?
math.
And that's how they calculate water and sewer. And then the fire department, just to look at it too.
Mhm.
I'm curious because the city, I'm looking at the city's rate matrix, and they don't charge in this way. They only list an SDC fee for total. So I don't know if there's a secret, maybe you know, Skylar, I don't know if you talked to anybody,
They're
but
probably charging for bowling alleys and movie theaters and gas stations and stuff too.
they're
not
just calling it a fee,
Not
so
just residential.
yeah, I was actually just at the planning department, they quoted me, they said it's about $10,000 per unit that you bring online. So if I built a single unit on my property, it's 10,000. If I build a duplex, now it's 20,000. So I'm just curious, like, is this the way you're figuring it out here, this fee schedule, does it matter if the existing fee schedule for our planning department isn't calculating this way? They're just doing a flat per unit fee.
This is a completely independent calculation, so
Okay.
we made no reference to your existing fee schedule at all.
Got it.
Okay.
Now, there is a line here we haven't talked about yet, and that is the dwelling unit blended line. And that's not, you can just forget about that, but let me tease what that's all about. It is becoming more popular in Oregon, and it's pretty much the law in Washington, that residential SDCs or impact fees have to be scaled, and that usually means scaled by the size of the dwelling unit. And so if you were ever to undertake that here and start charging dwelling units by their square footage, the first step in that would be coming up with a blended dwelling unit fee, because you would no longer recognize differences in the architectural style of the dwelling unit. You would only care about their square footage. But for now, that's probably something you don't need to pay a lot of attention to unless scaling is something that's important to you. But really, the focus now should be on, whether, as far as policy decisions to be made. First of all, the policy question is, do lodging units contribute to demand for parks facilities? And if the answer is no, then they shouldn't be charged at all. If the answer is yes, then they could be charged the way that we show it here.
The answer is yes.
Okay, so, boom, we got you covered.
So
But whatever percentage you decide to reduce these maximum charges, I would reduce the lodging unit by the same percentage.
Okay.
are those weighted numbers or are those just straight numbers?
Say more.
Oh, okay, so, in your fee schedule, single family dwelling unit, there might be 100 of those constructed in a 5-year period in 2 multifamily dwelling units.
I'm with you. There is no forecast about how many of any of these are going to be constructed, except at the very tippy top highest level where we have these forecasts. So we have 1,005 new residents in the forecast period with no concern or need to know if they're going to be in single-family, multifamily. So there is no forecast of the mix of housing, if that's your question.
Yes.
Okay,
But-
no, it's all, the only forecast is the number of residents, the number of, other system users like lodging guests. And then we take the total FTC per system user, that's 2,663, and we multiply it by the number in this column to get the number in the far column.
And we're calculated only residential real estate. There's no other kind of real estate this applies to.
That's correct. So that's a great question, because it doesn't have to be that way. But that was, you may remember we had kind of, we talked earlier before this engagement even started, and I kind of laid out some of the options. You absolutely can charge non-residential development a Parks SDC. Now, we would go through a process of distinguishing non-residential parks demand from residential parks demand, and that's an interesting little study in itself. We would have a great conversation about those tables, but typically the end result of those tables is that an employee tends to be 1/10 the demand of a resident, depending upon your inputs and assumptions, right? And that's all it is, an exercise of inputs and assumptions. But then we use that equivalence to develop non-residential SDCs that are equitable and fair to everybody, that reflects everybody's differential demand. And as you would expect, the SDCs for non-residential developments are fairly low compared to the residential, and that's by design, because their demand is different.
Yeah.
For parks.
For parks, yes.
Yeah, it
For
might
parks.
be different for transportation or something.
That's the horse of a different wheelbase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're with you.
All right, so this is where I wanted to bring up those policy issues. But here is the bare fee schedule. It includes lodging units, does not include non-residential, and single family is the maximum of 4,679 per dwelling unit. So if we take that single family and we compare that to other park districts, this is kind of our way of showing you that a number that goes from 0 to 4,600, that seems like a big jump, but we wanted to show you that it's not a crazy number given what is out there already. And so this is kind of to help you see that. We've actually worked with all of these districts except Bend, and we've had a hand in their thinking about SDCs. So that this would put you in you would be still on the lower end of this list. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive list. These are all districts, not cities, as I mentioned earlier. So the final thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned before we wrap this up and talk about your questions is the next steps are that there should be an ordinance or resolution governing SDCs as part of the adoption package, and that the public hearing is scheduled to be on August 26th, at which we are planning to attend in person. And so
Awesome.
happy to give what will probably be a similar presentation at that time, but perhaps for a wider audience, and that will allow us, I'll be available not only to answer your questions, but also if there are questions from the public, I have sometimes been asked to address those as well, and happy to do that. And with that, we have reached the end of our presentation. And now we can talk about what's on your mind.
Hey, John or Doug, whoever, I just have, one question, and that is, from our taxpayers' perspective, when they apply for a permit, there's gonna be SDCs from Clatsop County, right? And then additional SDCs from the city of Seaside. And then if we, apply an SDC, are there any other SDCs out there? Can the state issue them? Is there the road district here? Do they have an SDC? I mean, I'm just looking at the total burden for a new project.
Oh, yeah, that's totally fair. It's usually, you know, cities, counties, special districts,
Okay.
are what's in the mix. Importantly, when you're talking about total burden, even if you have a large number of overlapping jurisdictions, the same capacity should only appear in one place. And so that's one of the tricks of overlapping jurisdictions, is that you've got to make sure that if lots of folks are charging SDCs for the same type of service in the same geographic area, you got to make sure that the capacity on each list is distinct and not duplicated, because that's kind of the unforgivable sin. If you make a developer pay for something more than once, the same thing more than once, they can come after you and they will win.
Double dipping.
Absolutely.
So at a public hearing, I'm just wondering, what is like the implementation timeline? So what I wonder is, I just know that we have a lot of large projects coming online in Seaside or in this district. And I'm just wondering, like, I would imagine those developers who have already secured funding for projects might have something to say about the implementation timeline.
They probably already have permits.
I don't know.
If they got funding, they probably have permits.
Yeah, so what does the timeline look like? Is it as soon as you present it and announce your intention to move forward, that's when they start collection, or do you set a date? Is that part of our?
So you have a lot of flexibility there.
Okay.
So really the constraints, the legal constraints, are really around the question of how quickly can you do this. And there is, and I know Skylar is now quite familiar with this, there is the 90-day notice requirement that you have to give notice 90 days ahead of the public hearing. You have to make the report available 60 days ahead of the public hearing, and then comes the public hearing night. And there is some legislation, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution that's brought forward that's being considered for SDCs. That resolution, if that's what it is, that can have whatever effective date you want. So if you want these SDCs to be in effect 3 months from adoption, 225 days from adoption, it's whatever you want. Or if you want it immediately upon passage, that you can do that too.
I have a question about that.
5 days before the permit is applied.
So the board, as you know, is not allowed to, make decisions on what they might adopt if it's not in a public hearing setting. And you've shared, and I think they all understand that they can't take official action tonight as to if they're going to implement SDCs or impose SDCs and at what percentage. So at the hearing, is it okay if the language of the resolution has flexibility so that the board can still have this discussion, and I'm assuming there would be a motion to yes or no and at what percentage, and then further discussion. Like, I guess, is it customary for, at the hearing, for the resolution to be adopted by the local government? Or is it more customary for the hearing to be, let's say at this August meeting, the board to discuss, and then they take up the ordinance again at the September meeting and adopt what they're going to adopt?
So hearing in August, vote in September?
Well, I'm just asking, like, is there enough flexibility? I've gotten a sample ordinance from our council, and I think that there's enough flexibility that the board can take the issue up at the August meeting, and if they choose to impose at that time, you know, on a timeline, you know, later, they can. But I'm just wondering if that's traditional in your experience with local government.
So in my observation, and John, I'm interested if you want to add anything to this. In my observation, here's what usually happens is that there is discussion, you know, non-binding conversation. You can't take official action, but usually there is some indication of what the governing body will support. And certainly there is, it would not be considered an inappropriate official action for a governing board to say, hey, for the public hearing, bring us back a resolution that has been implemented at 75% of maximum. That's not an official action. The official action is when they actually adopt that resolution.
Okay.
So you could do it that way. And I have also seen it where it's less common, but yeah, you could bring back a resolution with blank spaces and say, we're gonna hash it out, man. I think that's less common. John,
Okay.
John, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's right. I mean, really, I've seen it both ways, Skylar, and very successfully. If you had a sense of where the board was going, bring the resolution, they adopt it, and you move on. If there's some discussion still to be had about phasing, you know, or if possible, when the effective date would be, then, as Chuck said, I forget what you call that. You leave the public hearing open.
Yeah.
What's the
But
purpose
then come
of,
back and vote on it the next time.
what's the purpose of the public hearing if we're gonna be rigid in our? I mean, we ought to be flexible because we might learn something from the public that may adjust our opinion.
Well, I think the public hearing is part of a larger board meeting, and then at some point you'd have a hearing at the beginning of the meeting, and then at some point you would close the public close the hearing. The hearing would be over, and then we would move into our own board meeting, which of course would probably include this kind of discussion and, perhaps a decision or modulating our approach in some way. I had one question because, we've been focused on the city of Seaside, and the district is bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get away from the city, how does the county help us collect the SDCs?
Sure. Yeah, we're working on another, likely to be an intergovernmental agreement with the county. And we'll, if we choose to impose, then we'll have an agreement, a separate one with the city and a separate one with the county for them to collect SDCs on our behalf. And it's fairly common for special districts. I've worked with some of the other park districts around the state to look at their agreements, and the county and city are both amenable to collecting the fee on our behalf and passing it on to us. And there'll be a small fee that we pay for that transaction, but that's fairly normal. So
Yeah.
those things will be able to be in place should the board choose to impose a fee.
Well, Skylar, I didn't mean to answer your question. I think you should be as flexible as possible because the community may object to one or more things, and we may adjust our opinion based on what we hear from the community. I mean, that's the whole purpose of a public.
But the beauty of it, the SDC, protects our residents you know, and it.
Right,
it
it takes the
doesn't-
burden off.
It doesn't put our needs on their backs.
Right,
Yeah.
it takes
That's
them
what they need-
off their
They
back.
need to understand.
So let me guide you then, if that's kind of the preferred approach. You will need to bring forward a piece of legislation to be considered. I mean, you're gonna need something concrete to consider, because that's what you're giving notice of, is that the board is going to consider this ordinance or resolution. And so, it doesn't mean you have to adopt anything that night, but also, it's not just public outreach in the sense that y'all come and we're gonna think about SDCs. There needs to be something that can be considered and voted on.
So if we draft kind of a resolution that the public will consider, but then we can also have discussion after and adjust it.
Well, I think that's kind of like what I was hoping for, but I guess the question is, if we want to have, any of these figures, or if the board is feeling, I think you're allowed to discuss now. I mean, you're in a public meeting, you're not going to take action, but maybe we have 2 or 3 different options, or if you have an inclination of how you want to go. I think having just blank spaces, it's gonna be hard to figure out the math, and be accurate, ensure accuracy and transparency, I think, from my perspective. But happy to do whatever y'all think is best.
You guys at the last minute had talked about this, and I'm at a point of, nothing's going in now. I'm sorry, I just feel like I want to walk out the door, because I don't understand. And I don't know how to get me there to tell the public about something that, I get it that this should have been something that was probably put together many years ago, and whatever the situation was, it didn't happen, and so it falls to us, and it's a standard process that, as far as I understand, we're looking at a taxation system, but we're not gonna, the public isn't gonna vote to pay, whatever percentage per dwelling. We're gonna make that decision, and then we're going to apply it, and then the city is going to, the city's already agreed with it, because this is something that has been going on for years.
Well, the city would just collect the money, for the permit process.
So,
I'm just lost, and I don't know that I can recover
I
tonight.
think you can. I think we can work with you together. I can work with you. I think these gentlemen will probably be willing to make themselves available to answer questions, and I apologize for your confusion. I think it is a complicated process. The reason why I think maybe I'm feeling more comfortable right now is because I've heard presentations, on this topic for a number of years, both at our board meetings and at conferences, and I've talked to other colleagues, and I think it takes, for me at least, it takes 40 times of getting it into your head. So,
I'm worried about me looking at the rest of this packet, because I feel like I was awake at 3 this morning. I drove in to town from where I was, and I'm trying to understand this, and I just feel like I should just go home.
So Sue, I feel like for me, the part that's a little confusing is all the formulas and the math that they did. And so they sort of explained that's enough to where I'm like, okay, I don't fully get all that, but I trust that they did all the math correctly, because that's their job.
And I like math,
Well, so
essential.
if we just sort of ignore the math part and just start with the maximum number that we can charge. So that's, they've done all the mathy parts, and we now know that this is our max, for slide 12. That's the total amount, 46,000. And it's just for new folks that are coming to town. It's not affecting our current constituents, our residents, unless Celeste goes and builds
Right.
another dwelling on her property. And then what Celeste is gonna do is she's gonna go to the city. City's gonna say, here are all the fees associated with that project that you wanna do. And one of those fees is gonna be this amount. And they're gonna pay that, and then the city is gonna give us that money. It's gonna sit in an account. And when we finally accrue, 10 years down the road, accrue enough to build one of these things on this list, that's when we will go, okay, we now have enough money in the SDCs plus money from another grant or taxes or whatever that we set aside, we will now build XYZ park.
I'm just
Does that help at all?
a little bit miffed to the past who.
Well, we
I
can't,
mean, yeah,
we're
but
moving forward,
Can't change any of
we're
that
yeah,
now.
we're
Right,
looking
I know, but
to 2040.
I understand, but I'm still trying to,
But you get the wisdom behind it, right? I mean.
well,
you
I know
so-
we're looking at
So we built this
future.
pool that was, I don't know, millions of dollars.
Right.
And then somebody moves into town and they get the use of this pool without contributing
Without paying.
anything to it.
Yeah.
Right, but when we, like, people that play pickleball complain, Carolyn brought a logical argument to us, we changed the fees.
But those are
So-
not the same.
And I understand that.
But we can change the fees at the
Yeah.
public
Right.
hearing
Right.
if we get input from the community.
Say
and
it's
they-
gonna be a hardship for low
Yeah,
income, or it's gonna be a
then we
hardship
should,
for.
we can change the
Well,
fees.
income person's not gonna build.
So,
I don't understand how this didn't happen before.
Well,
And
You're right,
different-
Sue.
different boards.
You're right, but we can't do that.
Yeah.
So we
So
can,
we're
but we
looking in the
can fix
future.
it for future boards.
But we need to tell the people, we need to convince the people, we're gonna charge you for future expansion.
If they build in our district.
Well, and how do we do the dog park?
If that's the money from this, if they build in our district. That was just one of the
example.
So when you move into our district, you're getting the use of our pool that you didn't contribute anything to.
Correct.
And when,
and you're adding to the
and
load.
when you move into our district, you're creating an additional, not burden, but demand on our services. So you gotta pay for that demand, and you gotta pay for your share of the pool
Right.
that you never contributed to.
Or what it's gonna take for us to meet the new demand that you're creating, right?
But
Like,
yeah, there's
if
two
400 new,
separate
if
calculations.
400 new apartment units come online,
Right.
we're gonna have a lot more demand at the pool. We need to expand our services. So that's what that helps us cover, is the expanded
We're gonna
demand.
increase our capacity.
Yeah.
All right, let's let this simmer for a minute. We're running a little behind, and can
Can I
you
ask
let,
one, I think it's a quick question?
quick?
Just very quickly, like, you said about the negotiations, who manages the negotiations? Like, if, for instance, if, the credit that you talked about, like, that if a new developer comes online with 400 units, and there's, some
Wants to build a
negotiation
park,
that takes,
yeah.
is that up to the planning, the city and the planning commission? Do we enter those negotiations? I'm wondering how that gets managed.
So it's not really a negotiation.
Okay.
If their application is conditioned for
Got it.
construction of a facility that is on your SDC list,
Got it, okay, that's helpful.
they are
Okay. They're
owed
owed the
credit.
credit, okay, it's
But-
formulaic.
But they wouldn't apply for that unless they talked to the local people to know that that was at least an option, right? They would have to communicate with us before they submitted the
Well, I
permit.
imagine it's part of the building, negotiation with
Yeah.
the building department, that it would somehow come
Yeah,
on
it
your
would go
radar.
back and forth. We'd have a say.
Okay,
But do you need a action or motion? I mean, I wanna have the public hearing. I support the numbers that they,
First, I think I'd like to say thank you, Doug, John, and Luke for
Yes.
joining us.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next month, and thank you for
Thank you.
answering
Thank you,
our many,
Paula.
many questions. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
It's our pleasure.
And
We'll talk
then,
soon.
as far as.
Okay, so.
Oh,
That
I think you guys,
Go away, so-
no, you don't have to go away. I think you guys have fulfilled your obligation.
Thoroughly fulfilled your obligation.
Yeah.
If you wanna stay, you can stay.
We thank Doug as well.
Yes.
Or then you have
I
more
got you.
comments.
So Skylar, if anything comes up, you know where to find us.
I do, yeah, and Luke, go Cougs.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank
for
you
your time.
so
All right,
much.
guys,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
We can't take official action now, but from what we were saying, we should probably have some sort of a consensus on what the board is thinking for a resolution for Skylar to present. They suggested either kind of, different choices, like we could have one at the full, amount, we could have one at 75, we could have one at 50, taking place immediately, starting of the new year, I don't know, whatever the board is thinking. We just need to give Skylar some direction on what to prepare for the August meeting.
For the ordinance.
So
So that-
you just wanna go around the room, is that what you're kind of suggesting?
I think if we can just get kind of a
My thoughts are,
consensus.
use their numbers, don't give them any options, and pick a date that's convenient for you.
Okay.
I mean, January 1st,
I think,
just before the building season starts.
yeah, and I feel like we can always shoot high and come down, so if we hear a whole bunch of,
Exactly.
Then we
And
can
if
be
we
like,
give
let's-
multiple choices, they're gonna want the lowest.
right.
No, you go, because I.
Plus need to get our building permit in quick.
Well, I do have, I'm concerned about whether or not we're overlapping with the existing parks and double dipping. So I'm concerned about that and would want to somehow get that cleared. I don't know how we would get that. I don't know what the process to clear that would be.
Yeah, I think, I was thinking about that too, and I mean, it seems like you're on the city site, maybe there's a capital plan for what they're using parks SDCs for.
Might
If
have
it's
a
not
rough
clear, I
plan.
could ask for clarity and see what they
Yeah, I think
provide.
that's important.
Yeah.
And this is, for, at least for Seaside, this is a 50% increase in SDC for
From
any
what?
new unit.
It could be that we have a claim on some, the park SDCs that the city's already collecting.
Well, that's a.
Mary
good
Blake
point.
mentioned that, several years ago.
That's a really good point.
And
Wow.
the city did use the SDCs, and I've mentioned this before,
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
to build the skate park. And we had, the park district, I think we donated 100,000, maybe 200,000. We had some capital project money set aside, and we threw it into the pot for the skate park. We threw money into the pot for the Broadway fields, but actually, I'm misspeaking, because the $400,000, the city SDCs went toward the new turf field for the football fields. And that was huge, and we got a grant, we got a state,
Mm-hmm.
the state park and rec grant,
That might be an
to go with
overlapping
that.
issue.
It was over $1 million.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And of course, that was a city park, so it's appropriate for the city to put money into that.
Right, but I don't think that's in our project list, but I mean, that could be that could be
It's
an
an example of how
overlapping situation, right?
SDCs, the city used the SDCs, we didn't have them at the time.
Yeah. Is that enough to go on?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you all for the time and,
I do think we could pare it down.
consideration and questions. And this has been, like I said, long process. We've been working on it internally, staff, for almost a year. And myself and Darren and a couple other staff have been heavily involved, so glad we're at this point.
Oh, you're not here.
Forgot to ask the question. Oh, I'm here.
They're available. I can provide contact, or it's in their presentation.
Well, my question was about growth. So there's no COLA adjustment to either the project costs or the SDCs.
There isn't, yeah, but
Okay.
the district, would reserve the right to recalculate their SDCs. And it's for some of the larger local governments that they provided. I know THPRD recalculates every few years.
Do they
You don't.
have to go back to the public to have
You
a
do,
public
you
hearing.
have to do the methodology and you have to have a hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Approval of board meeting minutes from June 24th, 2025.
Can I ask, so last month, Catherine, I said this, I don't know where my comments went. So Catherine was late but showed up. She was listed as absent. This time I was listed as absent, but and I know it's in the body that I showed up, and it probably is in the body that you showed up.
Yes.
But you've got absent, but board comment is present from you and from me. So it just doesn't make sense that, I mean, isn't it like, can it be tardy?
Sure, we could
Instead
add
of
another
absent?
bold line there for tardy.
Well, why don't we just list them as present and then just put the time that they arrived? And if they arrived at 6 o'clock, then say present, 6 p.m.
I mean, I asked this last month about Catherine because I thought it was odd that she's absent, but she has board comment. So this time it's now, I'm absent, but I have board comment. So it's just awkward to me that, well, Sue wasn't here. Now, and the other thing is, it's not like none of us are skipping 10 out of 12 meetings. And, you know, there's that requirement that, well, you're in trouble. We're not in trouble.
No.
Because we're present for 95%. I mean, and I was just running late because my daughter had to go through customs, and
Sure.
took forever. So I was just commenting that
I'm good.
I know it says that I showed up, I just feel it's funny that it says I'm absent when I gave board comment.
I like Kyle's suggestion, and we can, make that change to these minutes or
I
begin
understand.
that practice moving forward.
I would just make it edit.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Anything else? We have a motion.
I move we approve them as possibly amended by Sue.
Right, do you have a second? All in favor, signify aye, opposed, nay. Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Am I supposed to abstain because I missed 2/3 of the meeting?
No.
You were very,
Yeah,
You
you
weren't
can.
present.
Provided
You
comment.
weren't-
Yeah, well, I missed all this. Okay, I accept.
Celeste, Mike,
All right.
approved. Review of the financials from June.
Yeah, I'm gonna, just before, if there's questions and things, Chris, was not able to be with us tonight, he's ill today, so I can provide some insight, but, his expertise is missing. I think we ended the year looking pretty positively.
Yeah.
Revenue was a little bit under what projections were, but, largely attributed, I think, to, uncollected taxes, or not uncollected, unreceived taxes, that's the word I'm looking for, I'm not sure. We're still waiting for some payment from partners on, the Broadway Field Fund, so that's one reason why that's looking a little bit lower. And then in terms of the SRC, losing some of our, rental revenue and, not capturing I think we're a little probably over ambitious, lofty with our previous budget goals for grants, and also being able to operate in the SRC and capture revenue there. But overall, I think, yeah, ended the year looking pretty, solidly.
Yeah, and positive is positive.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is a little bumpier than I thought we were
Yeah.
gonna have. My concern about the SRC is if we collected 31% of the revenue, but it cost us 72% of the staff. So we didn't collect the revenue, but our costs didn't drop, and that is a little bit concerning. The 60,000 or so in taxes that we didn't receive, we always get our taxes. May not be the same year, but, you know, we will always get the taxes. I would really like to see this Sunset Recreation number, revenue number go up a little bit, and you know, it's the permitting and all that stuff. His thing, you know, the Consuelo, his thing,
Yeah.
Is there a likelihood that we're going to have that space in the near future?
We've had one possible partner discuss that opportunity. I think at this time, my recommendation would be that we don't move forward with a tenant until we have temporary occupancy. I think that has been a point that has caused friction with the planning department and the district, unbeknownst, kind of, I think, to us. But I think that's something that has caused some frustration, and I think it would be in our best interest to obtain that temporary occupancy and then maybe kind of explore some of our options or put out some opportunities for space.
Yeah, I can see how that would frustrate the city. Okay.
I think
My question.
my concern is the over expenditure for SRC stuff, which we've known that we're doing all along, but that's $300,000. I mean, to me, right, 300,000.
I'm talking about the
We
material
spent-
supplies and services.
Yeah, we spent 300,000 more than we expected to spend on SRC, which is, to me, the bulk of it. And I would really like to see us, I'm happy to provide some assistance here, but like, to me, the SRC improvements we're making for the community, to me, that is just prime for grant funding, even to help backfill some of this that we've already spent.
We can't do that with grants, so it's hard, they won't backfill money already spent.
They could help stop the bleeding. I mean, the investment in the SRC, I think the district has already taken a big,
Yeah.
I just feel like especially right now, when mental health is such a concern, and the sort of state of things for our young people is such a concern, and we're in a rural community where there isn't a lot of access to recreation opportunities. I just think it's something we should be asking, for a grant maker to partner with us on.
Okay.
Or Providence, or, you know, I just think those that can help us.
Okay, any other questions on financials, or do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, signify by aye, opposed, nay, Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Is Brandon still, yep, Brandon's still there.
Just gonna make sure he's sending the text.
I'm sorry, I should have asked this previously. Is the $138,000 expense on the check report to Zions Bank, I'd assume that that's our debt service?
That's the SRC loan.
Mm-hmm. What's the balance of this one,
I'm sorry, Kyle.
Hi, Brandon.
It's just ballpark, 800?
Well, so the building was refinanced 2.5 million, and this is our 6th or 7th payment, but the payments are not all.
So in one payment, you pay principal and
Yeah.
interest, and in the second payment, you just pay principal and vice versa.
Okay.
I can get you that. Hey, Brandon, can you hear us? Oh, you're muted.
Nope.
Try again.
No sound.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we got you.
Okay, cool. I'm having sound technology issues on my end. IT's been working on it, but hopefully this will hold.
Thanks for being flexible.
Appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah, no problem.
We're
We're here.
We were entertaining a lengthy presentation and conversation on systems development charges.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
All right, TJ, do you wanna just switch those? Do you wanna do SRC occupancy first, since Yeah,
Yeah, Brandon, we'd really love to get an update. I know you provided one to, Chris from Klosh Group and myself last week, but just an update briefly on the strategic plan, and then talk a little bit about your work with the occupancy process and how that's going. And then after that, you're welcome to contribute. We're gonna just cover briefly the RFP process and the Cove built, door project that we got, and, some funding solutions, hopefully, for some of the work we know needs to be done quickly in the SRC.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's fine. So, let's see, for a strategic master plan, I think most of you remember maybe Tim Gordon on our team.
Mhm.
Tim and I are working on it. We are on track to send you guys a revised document, the end of this week. We've been engaging SFA, and they've been helping us with analytics. So right now, we're just kind of trying to wrap up our effort over the next couple of days. We'll send you out a revised document that, I'll probably have a draft stamp on it, just so no one feels it's completely final and not open for further comment and review. So you guys should get that at the end of this week, and then we'll be holding tight on our end. Skylar, I know you and I are committed to try to wrap this thing up the month of August, so we'll give the board some time to review it, comment, obviously provide any kind of feedback, any final revisions, and then hopefully as a group, we can take that draft stamp on and kind of look at it as a final document.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, happy to do it. And Skylar, help remind me, and I apologize for this, but the last update that I had on the occupancy change, had we gone through the Chapter 34 analysis? Was the board aware of that?
Yeah, so I've shared, sort of, Skylar versions of that work that you've done with the board, and, the documents that, you shared with me and that you've submitted to the city have been shared to the board in, previous packets. But I think maybe this is a great time for you to kind of explain our change in attack direction to pursue this new opportunity, and give them a chance to ask questions if they have it about that, and what maybe your sense of is the timing to hear back from the building official, and what's being done on his end, I think, because that's really important work that we've, I think, improved the communication between the district and the city.
Great. Well, I'll kind of start from the last major change. So as everybody knows, we got contacted by the city. City was essentially saying, you need to wrap this up. Your permit, your structural permit is expiring. That was July 1 or June 1, excuse me. And really looking as a team, between ourselves, Skylar and staff, Klosh, and the building department, or community development department, if you will, looking to find options and way to kind of help get this thing across the line. So we've done a couple things on our end. It's kind of gone back and forth a little bit with the city. But one, we looked at how can we approach this from a code perspective in terms of alternate ways of finding approval criteria for the change of occupancy. We've always communicated that look at this building, you all have done some due diligence, and in our mind we had kind of agreement with the fire building official and the fire marshal on a plan of attack. And that plan of attack was to address fire life safety systems in the building, i.e. the fire suppression system and the fire alarm. So everybody here knows that the fire suppression system checked out, it's in good condition, working order, it's been inspected, and got a thumbs up. The district spent a significant amount of money putting in a new fire alarm system. So that's been complete, that permit's closed out, fire marshal has given a thumbs up and signed off. And so what we did was we provided the building official, in our mind, 3 pathways that as the architects of record, how we could regulate this building. The Oregon Structural Code is a guide, and it has a lot of kind of different paths forward in the way you would use it. So we actually found 3 different ways in which we could regulate the building. And it's a little convoluted, and if you're not versed in the building code, it may be a little convoluted, but I'll do my best. We all have been great pupils, and some of the code stuff, so bear with me. But one path we found was that we would not have to do the full occupancy change. We found a path that we could say that the building is still an E-occupancy, right, an education occupancy, same as a school. We could articulate that the use that the district plans, to do in the building, the recreation, the education, all of the intended program is very much like what a school is. Now, the only difference from a code perspective is the code defines the school based on age. Okay, so grade ages, kindergarten through 12th grade is education. And it pretty clearly defines that any kind of technical training, vocational training, anything that kind of looks like education that is done outside of those age groups would be deemed non-education. So we feel that since the work is so similar, you are serving those age groups, but your demographic is expanded, we could ask the building official to apply the same interpretation we would and say that you're pretty much doing the same thing the school is doing and maintain the E-occupancy. Now that path number one, is an ask. We have to ask the city, we have to ask the building official to agree to that and sign on board, if you will. Okay, so that's one path. Path number two, and are there any questions on that? Does that make sense?
I just have one question. What would a college, so if it's K through 12, does a college not count as education?
It would be considered a fee of business.
Oh,
what?
Interesting.
And
Okay.
the dormitories would be considered something else.
Would be considered PE?
No, B, a business.
B.
Oh.
B as employee for business, yeah. Good question. So path number two is very similar to what we're doing now, right? We said that the big box gyms, if you were building it today, it would be an assembly space. So it would be an A occupancy. And there's a couple different A occupancies, and it really depends on what you're doing. But the gyms are what we would consider an A3 occupancy. And then the rec center itself overall is a B, because you are serving individuals beyond that 12th grade age. And then you have an E component, which is the daycare, the early education, however you want to describe that. That is the E. And that fits the age criteria. There are specific requirements for the infant to 3 years of age, and we're checking, the facility checks those boxes. That is where we're at today, but what we would propose is a slight change in the way we articulated the separation between the occupancies. Okay, you have to separate the B from the E. But we have found some path that we could say that we would do a combination. We would say that the A occupancy is separated from the rest of the structure. The two gyms actually have a 3-hour firewall between the main building. So from a code and regulatory standpoint, those could be considered their own buildings. That would then leave you the rest of the facility with all the little classrooms, cafeteria, the boiler room, where you have the actual preschool daycare. That would all still be a B and an E. But we can articulate that the area for the B occupancy and the area for the E occupancy are below what we call allowable area, right? The buildings those components of the buildings are small enough that you would be allowed to do that. And when you add those two areas up, they don't exceed a threshold. So you have to say, if the E occupancy could be 10,000 square feet, that's the max allowed, and you are at 5,000 square feet, you're using 50% of your allowable area. And then you would have to, then the rest of the building would have to meet within that 50% of your allowable area. So when you add up the two occupancies, it can't exceed, 1 or 100, if that makes sense, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that does, and actually when you look at the building, the combined occupancies are below that threshold. So what we proposed in that option was to actually remove a lot of the fires, all of the fire separation that we proposed as new. That helps the district reduce scope, reduce cost, and actually gets us across the board a little bit quicker with that scope of work. The third option, was kind of a combination of that and was an ask, another form of that same ask, where we would have to tell the building official, we feel this is close enough and we would like a gracious interpretation. So we presented that, that was one course. We presented that, said, hey, look, there's 3 ways in which we could revise the current drawings, the code summary, pull some potential scope out, and put the project on a path to do that work a little bit quicker, a little bit sooner, and put the city in a position where they can close out the project, close out the permit. We submitted that, building official and I discussed that, and came to an agreement, like, yes, these are 3 viable code paths. In my mind and my preference, it was code path B, the second one, that I felt gave the district the most leniency, the most flexibility in the future, okay? This should, to me, this is the appropriate way to regulate the building, to really describe the type of use, type of function, and when you were to change that down the line, you would be set up in a way that it would make it easy for you to make changes. And again, if we were building the facility from scratch and from new, that's what it would look like. That's what it would look like from a code perspective. So both building official and I agreed with that. He asked us if we would look at one more analysis, okay? And that's a chapter 34 in the building code, a performance-based analysis. And I'll admit that I don't do those often. In the office, we don't do them often. And the building official admitted him as well. He is not as familiar with that process. But he was interested in that and asked if I would do that analysis. And I said, no, that's a little bit of a lift. It's a pretty extensive analysis, but I'm willing to do it. You know, let's push this thing forward. And now the result of the analysis would back up our stance in saying that it's a safe facility. There is minimal risk here, and we feel we should have a clear path forward to use it the way we intend. I am not going to try to educate you on that Chapter 34 prescriptive path, performance path method, but what it basically does is it looks at all of these different sets of criteria for the main functions and components of the building. And you apply a score in 3 different categories. And they are safety categories that deal with fire separation, egress, and literally the building's just kind of the way it's structured and set up. It took some time to do that analysis, and I think I could show you that analysis on my end. I ran that analysis, and I ran it a couple different ways. And I ran it with that B option, where we regulate the building the way we see it most fit, and ran the analysis for each one of those occupancies. Ran it for occupancy E, ran it for occupancy B, and ran it for occupancy A, if you will. And I have this up, I'll flash it real quick, we won't go through detail. But it's Chapter 3413, Performance Compliance Methods. And basically what this says is you do this analysis, and there are all these different criteria here. I'll go to the back. Yeah, 30-page analysis of just code and kind of reiterating what we did here.
We appreciate you, Brandon.
Oh yeah, no, it's good stuff.
It took you 30 pages to explain that?
What was that?
It took you 30 pages to describe that?
So where do we stand with the city now?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I think he's crafting a little narrative for us.
Yeah, and so the way we approach it is we go through that chapter, and every section, this is the code, it reads exactly like this verbatim. The provision of this section shall apply to blah, 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 blah. And then we provide a response. And it was an agreement with the building official to do it this way because there was an acknowledgement that this isn't normal, this isn't typical, but it's in there, we can use it as a tool. And so what it does is require us to kind of go through methodically and explain each step along the analysis. And that's why it takes 30 pages, because you got to write it all out. But if we go to the very end, the important stuff is, what it asks you to do is fill out this form right here. 2-page form. So it's table 3413 1.1.7. There will be a testimony. But basically, you go through and fill out all the forms information. Here's the existing occupancy. What's the proposed? How many stories? What's the height? How much feet? And you go through and answer all these questions. And then it looks at the 3 safety features. So fire safety, means of egress, general safety. And what you want to do in the end is produce a result that has a passing score. And if you pass, the analysis is basically saying that based on these parameters, performance-based parameters in the code, the structure is inherently safe. So ran the analysis, did the A, did the D, did the E, and in each one of them, the building passes. It passes pretty well. You get a score of 31. It passes everything. These are the scores that you would get. So you got 61.6 points out of that first series.
Is this out of 100?
Yeah, what does that mean? What's the scale you're using?
Well, it's hard to explain it. But again, you've got to go through each one of these criteria. So you get a set of points based on how you fit into this category. Okay, so building height, we can do this. We can do this.
So did we barely pass or did we do well?
You did very well.
You just passed it.
Right, but was 31 out of 60?
There you go.
Yep.
He said we
So
did
you
well.
can see here, it says the value for a building height number source shall be lesser than the value determined by the formula in this section. Here's the formula. Give all the numbers for it. So once you plug in that formula and that number, you take that score, right? So because the building does not exceed the allowable height, it is a 1-story building, you actually score a lot of points. Go back. So for the building height, area you get a point, but for building height you got 2 points. And a lot of these could have a negative point, they could have a 0 point, or they can give you, 2 to 3 points.
What's a passing
Okay, so
score? What's a passing score?
Go ahead. Well, it depends on each category, right? So in this category, for the B occupancy under fire safety, the building scored a total of 61.605 points. I probably could have reduced it to decimal places, but we were pretty accurate. So 61.605, that's the amount of points you got.
We got 61?
Yeah,
Yep, you got
61.6.
For fire safety.
The table, the criteria tells you that you minus 30 out of it. 30 is the benchmark. And so what you do is you take 61 minus 30 and that's your score. If it's a negative or if it's a 0, you're not passing. But anything above 0 passes.
Oh, okay.
So you can see,
Okay.
so you can see here that it gives a good number, it gives a healthy number.
So by double digits.
You basically double the requirement. Right? The requirement is to achieve 30 points in that category, and the building achieves 61. So it passes with flying colors in my mind. And so we did this again with each group. Here's the A3 occupancy. Here's the points. You got 10 over the minimum, 15 over, and 21 over in each one of those categories. So it passes with flying colors. Yeah, and this is the final one. This is group E. 48, 41, 39. So the building actually does pretty good. It's a 1-story building. It's got plenty of egress. It's under the allowable area, under the allowable
Nobody
height.
sleeps there.
Yeah.
It's, it kind of, it backs up what myself, what, obviously you all feel, and honestly what the fire marshal feels. It's a relatively safe facility. So we did this analysis, we did the 3 different code paths, and in the end what I decided to do was revise the drawings based on that code path 2, where we say the building is an A, it's a B, it's an E, It's an honest, true look at the facility, and again, it's what it would be if you built it new from scratch. So I won't go through all the drawings here, but what that allowed us to do was this drawing, if you remember, I'm sure all of you know it by heart and recognize it, you know, very well. But this drawing right here, this image will help our conversation. So the overall building, the whole thing is neat. What we had originally proposed is we would take this existing fire separation line and would add to it and extend it. And we basically extend it along this path all the way down. So, and that's the 1 hour fire barrier that we have to put in. We have to put in fire smoke dampers, we have to change out all the doors, we have to come in and add more jet finishes to the walls to achieve that 1 hour separation. But because we're playing a little bit of code gymnastics, what we could do is say, hey, the B and the E are both under the allowable area, and they do not exceed that 100% of your allowable area. Therefore, they do not need to be separated. Because the building has an existing 3 hour separation between, at the gyms, those can be considered completely separate buildings. And again, that A occupancy, that A area is below the allowable area threshold. And since you all following and tracking, I'll show you this. So that building area 1, the B and the E, you can see of the B occupancy, you're at 0.52 of the allowable area. So you're only, 50% of what you could be on the B side. And on the E, you're at, just over 10%. And so when you add those two numbers up, you're at 0.63, which means you are well under that 100% or that one number. If you were at 1.01, the building would be too big and over at the allowable area, and we would be required to put in that fire separation. So we come in, revise the drawings, I've submitted both packages, or all 3 packages. The original kind of code look at, hey, do we have multiple opportunities when we regulate it? I submitted the Chapter 34 performance analysis, and we submitted the change of the revised permit drawings. And what Jeremy and I agreed to, the building official and I agreed to was, since this was something that is atypical, the analysis, the Chapter 34 analysis, he would engage the state building official, which I think is great. So he's getting a little bit of backup on his end to make sure, from his perspective, he's interpreting it correctly, he's reading it correctly, and he's within his bounds as the actual building official. Which I'm supportive of. I think that's great because, if we're not right, we want to know. We want this to be right and the best path forward for the district. And then the other part that he's doing is he's subbed it out to a third-party plans examiner. So he's taken all 3 documents that I've given him, and he's given it to a known reviewer, and we're thinking within the next couple weeks, we'll have that interpretation from that third-party group. And we're hopeful, confident, that third party will agree with our analysis, all the code gymnastics that we've done, and will give us a thumbs up on the revised drawing. If that does indeed happen, we've got a path to change out 2 doors in the building, remove a pair of doors, at least in a door, and you're done. They would close out the permit, and they would most likely give you, at the minimum, a temporary certificate of occupancy. That is still a question and still a conversation we need to work through, the TCO versus the full certificate. What they're wanting to do is have us address the mechanical system overall. And I'm telling them that we will do that as a district, but we don't want to be held to kind of strict times. That's a big lift. Skylar and Klosh have asked me to go out and get an estimate for that. I have that in hand. We talked briefly about the cost of that, and it's not cheap. It's, you keep spending significant money. So I'm holding that for the moment, and when we hear back from the independent third-party reviewer, we'll kind of use that in the conversation and try to set the tone that the district is doing everything they can and doing it in a timely fashion, and we all agree we've got a safe building, so let's move forward. And let's keep moving forward and providing flexibility for the district in the way they actually want to use the facility. I did see that the package went to the independent, the third-party reviewer, and again, Jeremy thinks it'll take a couple weeks to get a response. So we've got a 2-week to 3-week window. We should hear back, and then my intent is after is to bring Skylar and Klosh, and we go meet with the city and see if we can kind of just, finalize the path forward and move on. I will say that the district will have to address the mechanical system, but I want to separate this work from that. I think there was a little bit of confusion in the drawings when we started talking about the modifications to mechanical systems. Our intent was to address the fire separation. So anywhere where that firewall went through a duct, we'd have to put in a fire smoke damper. And so when we said, hey, modifications to the mechanical system, that's what we meant. And those modifications pertain solely to the work that we're doing here with that fire separation component we're installing. I think it was interpreted that we were saying that we would follow through with the full brand new mechanical system, which was definitely not the intent. So I have revised that in the document. I've stripped that out to reduce any kind of confusion. And I'm hoping that we will have the latitude to address the mechanical system and move forward in a timeline that just works. And I think that would be a 2-year period. You'd have about a 2-year window from when we close out this permit to get that work done. And from all indication on Klosh and staff, we should be able to do that within that time frame. So it feels like we're one step closer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.
So my question is there any way that this is gonna come back on us as we cut corners to get it done? I mean, number one, honest to God, thank you for what you're doing and how you're figuring it out, but is somebody gonna come back and with a backlash that?
I don't think so. No, I think Jeremy is doing his due diligence. I respect that. I think that is right. I think that provides risk mitigation for the district as much as it does for him and the city.
Yeah.
I think if the state building official says, no, I think this reads right, existing facility, we looked at it a couple of different ways, we agree, and this third-party plan examiner comes back and says, yeah, it seems to pass the sniff test, I'm sure there will be questions. I'm sure there will be another conversation and maybe some revisions. But I think the logic and the use and the interpretation of the code is sound. And if we can get all three entities, the city, the independent plan examiner, the state building official, all give that thumbs up, I think you're in a great position.
Brandon,
It is all within the extent of the code.
Brandon, so we're gonna designate parts of this building, as different facilities, if you will, for the purposes of the code. So, what happens if we...
Just a quick correction on that. They will be the same as if there is no changes to the occupancy designation. The original drawings always showed the A, the B, and the E. And that's why I think that second code path would be appropriate. Because it maintains that occupancy designation, maintains the A, the B, and the E. What I'm doing is I'm using the allowable area in a way that we don't have to separate the A, or the B and the E.
Right, well, my question was gonna be really, what happens if we want to change one of the designations in the future?
You have to go back through this process.
Yeah.
And now, what I will tell you is you've got a lot of latitude in that B and E occupancy. Again, because you're at, what did I say, like 6.3, you're at 63% of the allowable use. So you've got, 77% left in that allowable area. So you could expand. It would just be limited in what you do. If you were to come in and change the occupancy, like, I don't know, you changed it to an F, the factory, started making stuff, you would have to go back through this process. If you expanded the gyms, if you built on another gym, you would be able to do that. We would have to maintain that 3-hour separation, but you would be able to do that.
Is this normal?
And you can speak.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sharon. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, is this normal for facilities, for park and rec facilities that you guys have been involved with before, that you have to divide the building up in this sort of way?
It's very common in large buildings. Yeah, that's
Okay.
very common. Yeah. And that's the nice thing about the code, it allows different ways to do that. And, yeah, so no, this is common, this is typical. I had a project within the last 5 years in Oregon City that was similar. It was a massive, I had like 50,000 square feet of warehousing, 20,000 some square feet of office building, and like every single type of building we put in. It had a metal building, greens or nailered, it had concrete, it had every assembly type we put in there. And that was the approach we had to take. We had to compartmentalize each section of the building, fire separation, as the same task. So. Now, where I feel like I could have done a little bit better early on was do it this way to begin with.
That's okay, hindsight's 20/20.
It's a viable path. I just didn't. Yeah, this helps get costs down. This helps reduce how much work you have to do in the building, and I think this continues to paint that picture that it is a safe facility. That's what we've always agreed to.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you've always been allowed to do what you're doing, and fully believe that's why they asked us to do some fire watch while you're doing the fire alarm. Because you have plenty of exiting, you've got eyes in there, you've got knowledgeable staff all throughout the building. It's a safe facility. And you're not asking anything that would be out of the norm. We're converting another school like this to a purpose-built facility. We're in concept, right? It would be the same thing. We would take the same approach.
Thanks, Brandon. I think we're ready to move on to the RFP portion of the process.
Brandon, you're welcome to cut out. I think I have a good handle on this and shared what we need from the board in this next steps. If you want to stay and provide insight, you're welcome to do that too.
I'll hang out for a few.
Cool.
Not thinking it's going to take you too long, but
no,
I can hang out for a few.
Is that okay? Yeah, so I prepared a memo with some information, and I think you all remember in the budgeting process, we're budgeting funds for this firewall change and the door improvement that we knew we needed to make. We were kind of working on some rough estimates, but I think we budgeted for around $400,000 for this work. Well, since this great change that Brandon just explained has come about, we now know that we don't necessarily need that same scope of work to be completed. There's some of those projects still need to be completed. And so provided some information for you. Included in this information is this RFP that went out in June that Klosh Group put together for us, and that was included in the June board packet. It's an informal RFP. We're not required to do the formal RFP process because the cost is under $50,000, but we solicited bids from local contractors that Klosh Group felt would be qualified for this, and we only received one bid back. It's from Coveville, an Arch Cape-based company, and they are really familiar with the building. They've provided some of the insight on what the cost would be for the firewall. Previously, they've walked the building before even bidding on this project. So they prepared a quote for us, and the total project cost that they prepared just for the door work in Gym 1 is a little under $30,000. We also are in need, as was going to be part of that $400,000 loan that we were going to take out for SRC improvements. We are in need of some other improvements in the building. So those harder numbers, we didn't necessarily have them at the time of budgeting, but we have a better sense now for what the needs of the building are. These are not all necessarily associated with occupancy, but they are associated with pretty essential building improvements that we feel like the building needs to have soon. And so it kind of makes sense from our perspective, from staff perspective, to lump that all into a bigger financing package, and for the district to go out and try to secure financing for the whole of these projects, essentially as soon as the board approves them. So I can go through kind of some details about the work, but you obviously have, on the first line, you have the door work, and there's a long and lengthy contract that was proposed by Coveville. You'll remember that the roof above the kitchen in the SRC is in pretty poor condition and is sinking in a few areas. And we think it's attributed to, one, the roof just was not made with modern engineering or the weight, the weather capacity, the weather that we experience here. But also, we don't need giant walk-in refrigerators and freezers in that space like the school did. So our proposal is to remove the walk-in fridge and freezers and replace them with more modern, commercial door units, open the door, sorry, that's the technical term, and to repair that roof using a blend of contractor work and some of our maintenance team's capabilities.
Before you go too much farther, just question,
Sure.
will that meet the needs of like the school district's summer lunch program and
Yeah,
stuff?
great question. We worked on that pretty diligently, and we measured the square footage of the fridge and freezer, the replacement units, and they're actually at or greater capacity than the fridge and freezer walk-in units. Now, there's more square footage in those spaces, but shelving, because the way they're laid out, will have more shelving capacity with a more modern unit and probably be able to operate a lot more efficiently. The next line is for some security system improvements. Isaiah can share a little bit more about that if we call on him, but we don't have to because he may not be awake back there. But essentially, we want to be able to update the doors and camera system that we have throughout the building, especially important as we get to a more busy building and occupancy allowed building. So if you've noticed some of the doors, we've made some improvements to 2 of the doors with our security system and being able to fob in, and it's been really great. We're able to monitor access, but I think as we move forward, we need that on some of the other doors, and installing additional cameras will help us in that area as well.
Is the hope to move to like badges versus hard keys?
Probably in addition to hard keys, I think we'll almost always still have, I guess my vision, Isaiah can correct me if he has a different perspective. My vision is that we'll still need the hard keys for a lot of the interior doors, but for exterior doors, I think the swipe in, the badge system will work.
PBL folks or what,
Yeah.
nice to be able to control who's got access
Absolutely.
and when.
Yeah. And all of the door units that we've installed, they all have cameras, so we're able to monitor and get, facial profiles of the people that are coming up to those doors, at least to the 2 doors in the SRC that we have it now. And it's really nice. We also have it at the Hirsch facility, and it's prevented a lot of challenges that we had previously, and also, allowed us to capture, information on people that might be in that space that don't have permission to, or are hurting it in some way, like damaging the space. The next thing, roof sealant. There's a few spots where the roof is not in great shape. Besides over that kitchen, there's a spot on the west hallway. If you walk the building, you'll see it often leaks when we get heavy rain, and there's also a spot in gym 2. So it's been recommended by a roofing contractor as a shorter term solution, not to repair the entire roof, but this would provide us with some solution in the meantime to purchase some roof sealant that is a recommended product for our area, and roll that on. We'd like to make some parking lot improvements. This has been suggested a few times, but especially important with some of the other changes in the parking lot, with that throughway being closed off by the glass recycling and the yard debris recycling, the farmers market traffic with the EVCS contract that we approved, and we'll have an electric vehicle charging spot out there in the next 6 months to 9 months probably. So I think this is really important for lighting, cameras, and some other needs. And then the last thing that we budgeted for was we really feel like the building could be, the aesthetic of the building could be improved with a fresh coat of paint. And it's not just paint, it's the entire process to scrape and, texture the walls, and we have, we've been working closely with Randy Anderson. He's provided us with a lot of information on what that process would be. So we have kind of a hard quote from him and some opportunity for him to work with Sherwin-Williams to get some help and resources. We also would really like to capture some of the beautiful and large canvas of art space that's available, especially on the gym walls. We have a really good opportunity, I think, to market the district, to market physical activity and what that building represents to our community, which is significant on the eastern-facing gym walls to those folks that are using Broadway Field. So there's been lots of discussion. We've had some early discussions with muralists and what that might look to sort of improve the aesthetic of the building. But this also includes some signage. We don't really have signage on the building. It's lacking, and I think we're all aware of that. Frustrated by that, but we want to do it right, and some other visibility improvements, some wayfinding that shows where to go for access points, where to go for the pool, where to go to other places around the district, kind of beginning that campus feel. So it may not be the final product of what it looks like, but it gets us to a point where somebody that pulls up or is driving down the highway may be able to have greater visibility and connection to the building than they have right now.
Have you seen the completed mural on Armory?
I haven't seen the completed one. I saw the pictures in the paper.
It just got finished last week, and it looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know Robin Montero, it seems like we had this conversation quite a while ago, and she was incredibly excited.
She's been really helpful in just kind of helping us get in touch with some muralists here and provide some just really rough budget, because I wasn't really sure what this process would look like for an artist and things like that. We've never done anything like this. So, or we have, but on a much
What's the fee?
No.
I would reach out to Armory, they literally just did this on a bigger space than we have.
I think, I'm wondering what the design and review process for that is, because I think just I'd be interested in the SEA too, some input from them, and, I mean, it's just such an opportunity to brand and communicate the story of what's going on with these facilities and what the district does beyond just being a pool. And so I would just wonder, like, instead of moving too fast on it, like putting a very intentional process into place that includes a design review process. And I also think this is a great example of a very fundable kind of project for a grant, like to have somebody.
I'd like to see our Native American community get involved in that.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I mean, so what is that process?
Right.
To decide who's at the table and what the space is dedicated to and all of that stuff. It just, as opposed to just having somebody, like, you know, I know Randy and I know he's instrumental in our community, but like instead of having just a guy dictate what it is, like what, how do we make it a real community process, because it'll be so visible.
Well, and I know whatever process we go through, I think, I mean, when they were having the conversation about dealing with the garbage cans, they went off into the weeds and the minutia. And so it is important that, you know, I mean, and I know the conversation was, wow, we didn't know this was going to take this kind of time or energy or detail. And so I think, you know, you're right, you know, knowing that there is all of that involved, I think makes it much easier to implement. And
I think we should engage the community and have the community decide what they want that wall to look like, because that could be a really powerful opportunity for us to get that level of engagement. And then when it goes up on the wall, then you get more engagement because it was a community that decided.
I also think to the point of, that we did when we did the pool, when the big pool was done and the tiles were, I mean, there's just so many, there's sponsorship opportunities too, right? This is a place where we can kick off a capital campaign to bring in donations and sponsorships to cover all of this cost that we need to cover somehow. So
I was gonna chime in that, we do this quite a lot, particularly in our affordable housing studio, where, they will do exactly what you're talking about, and they will come up with a theme, an idea, put out a call or request for proposals from local artists, and they have a committee, and then they kind of do some public engagement, and, do the selection that way. I could, Kyle, if you'd like, I could plug you with someone on our end that just did it, and give you some examples.
That'd be great.
As well as you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then, and Tim Gordon, actually, we're doing one for the nonprofit group, the Upper Bound Camp in Gates.
Uh-huh.
And, we're gonna do a mural, and we're gonna do a donor wall, so
Yeah.
some similarities.
Yeah.
And then, so to answer your question, Seaside doesn't have a very extensive, zone code, if you will. So I could do a quick little peruse online and see if there's anything there with regards to mural public art. I don't think there is off memory.
There's quite a few.
So I think it might be a question to the city, like, is this signage? Is this
Right.
just painting the building?
Yeah.
I'd like to think that there isn't a lot you have to do in terms of a formal design review from a regulatory standpoint.
Well, I have a really odd question. Mike, Hinton did, the Safeway mural went away. They kind of threw it away. He has all the tiles. On the back of the bathroom at Goodman Park is a reduced version, but I think it's great, because I know, at the chamber meeting, I kind of asked for more detail on it, because I don't think most people know that that's there. I know there's a tremendous amount of tile that you still have, Mike.
Well, I don't have a tremendous amount. I don't have enough to do, it would not be feasible to use any of that tile on the Park District.
Okay, because I was wondering.
Have you guys
You know, I'm
seen
interested in
the
the-
armories? Have you seen this? This is what they just finished last week.
Yeah, there's so many, I mean, I love public art, I tour the murals, outdoor art, whenever I go to another city, because I dig it, I think it's awesome, like, there's so many great examples, and I think, particularly given the location of our building and the enormous amount of wall space, I think we have a real opportunity here, and I just want to make sure that we go into it in a real planful way and not just
I agree.
sort of
Yeah.
miss the opportunity.
It's a huge community asset.
Well,
I mean, we could do so many
So much.
things.
I mean, I would expect that moving that mural you did would be over
we're
the
not
top.
gonna move that.
But I would say,
Yeah.
other
That
than the
mural-
mural wall.
You could put a movie screen up on that wall and have drive-in, people could drive in movies, they could do lots of stuff.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
Can I just ask one question on this bid?
Sure.
Why did the other companies not come back?
Some of them did come back and just say they don't have the capacity, and I would imagine it for almost all, or for all of them, it's just a capacity issue. I think, two of the companies that did reach out and just say they don't have the time, they're both engaged in other very, very large projects in the county right now. And, honestly, I think we probably, our contact with Josh Group, Chris, probably called in, support or a proposal from Code Built. Otherwise, we might not had any. It's just not a large enough project to really whet the appetite of.
Do you feel like with only one bidder that the price is within the?
I do,
window
actually,
of
the
appropriateness?
rough estimates that Chris had came up with were a little beyond what the bid came back at.
Okay.
So,
Do we need to,
Yeah.
do we need to vote on this?
I would echo that as well. And Coville, if you remember, helped us, a few years ago with some early conceptual pricing, and they know the facility really well. So I think it's a good number. I would echo.
Yeah, and it's hard to get contractors to show up, correct,
Yeah.
Very,
at all.
very.
the majority of their costs was.
Hopefully, he's an effective contractor.
The majority of the costs were just, for those doors and the side lights and things. So I think what I would like is either a motion that encompasses, the authority for staff to go out and secure financing for these projects, as well as,
Enter into an agreement.
enter into this agreement with Cofield.
We already approved borrowing. for this.
We did, but it was for a different amount, and frankly, I just want to ensure that the board has full decision-making Yeah, you did, but it was for $400,000, and this is a different scope, a different amount. And I wanna make sure, now that we have additional information, and to be honest, like, the roof sealant wasn't included in that 400,000, because we did budget.
But you only have a contract for this door work so far.
Correct, yeah.
And you have the authority to sign that contract?
I think I don't. I don't,
I can't remember how much
Yeah.
authority we gave you.
I don't feel comfortable signing the contract without explicit board authority, so.
So you want the,
I would say we do two
Sure.
motions. I would do one to enter into the agreement with Cove and give Skylar
authority to
authorization
borrow
to,
money to do it?
yeah. And then the other one to borrow money for the rest of these projects.
Oh, but I guess I would just say borrow money for the rest of it. Like, again, I feel like I would like to see us raise the money for the paint process, right? Like that has to bring in more than
Maybe we could get a
$75,000.
grant. I think the grant writing might be part of the process of finding the funding.
Could we,
possibly.
The rest of them aren't as sparkly, I guess I would say, that to attract, except maybe the kitchen kind of stuff, particularly given the amount of meals that we.
It's kind of urgent,
serve.
though.
It's urgent, yeah, so I don't know, yeah.
And we need to do it in the summertime while the weather's good.
That's a great point. So, but some things are more fundable. I don't know that lots of people are gonna get super excited about
The painting,
parking lot
we-
improvements. But the
painting, we could
painting
look
for
at
sure
funding.
should be self-fundable.
Especially if it included a mural.
Yeah.
Well,
You
I
know.
think the mural's gonna end up being a separate project.
Yeah, so a motion that would authorize Skylar to proceed with these improvement items, and also give him the flexibility to manage, how do I want to phrase it? Allow him to negotiate the things that he can negotiate. Of course, he can't negotiate the AIA contract, that's set, but, give him the flexibility to manage the timing and the cash flow of this project.
I think that sounds good to me.
So I'll move that, the board, proceed with the projects listed under the SRC budget of July 22nd. And, also at the same time give the executive director the flexibility to, make non-substantial negotiations in the process.
And enter into agreement with
Enter into agreement, the
Cove.
Cove.
I'll second that.
Cove Built LLC.
All right, thanks, Mike. All in favor, signify aye, opposed nay. Kyle? Sue?
Right.
What?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
A lot of
Okay,
work.
fitness agreement.
And thank you all.
Have a good night.
see you soon.
Very much appreciated.
Let me
Okay,
know if you need anything else.
Thanks, man.
A shorter update here as we move forward. We are in, I think it's month 4 or 5, sorry, from with our agreement with Mint Conditioning, and it's working well. We're having attrition, which is pretty normal in the fitness industry as the months roll by, or maybe it's because we have better weather and more people are recreating outside. But what I do want to share, positive news, is that our fitness room, the older fitness room, what was old, in the back of the pool, is completed. And based on feedback, some strong feedback that we've received from patrons, we decided to move some of our existing fitness equipment, some that had been over at the SRC and some that was not over at the SRC, back into that space and open it up as a fitness room. We're having, it's nearly completed, but we'll have a soft opening starting next Monday, and then the official opening will be August 1st. And at that point, we'll discontinue our membership with Mint Conditioning, as our patrons will have that option available to them during all hours of pool operation. It looks nice in there. We have about 5 pieces of cardio, a couple of weight machines, some dumbbells, some stretching things, and those are the amenities that our pool patrons had asked us for. And I think we have a smaller group, but a very strong user group that wants to be able to come to the pool and do dry land fitness training, run on the treadmill or whatever it might be, lift weights, and then get into the pool in the same room. So how we use that space moving forward has not been determined, but I think this is a good solution for us right now while the SRC is not available for drop-in use. I would encourage you to come check it out. We were able to utilize some funds from Pacific Power, a grant that we got from them to purchase some kind of filling and fitness equipment, but it's quite nice in there with the restoration done by the contractors and by our staff.
Great.
I just have a point of order. I thought we were gonna have two votes on the SRC, one for the projects and one for the funding.
Well, you sort of lumped them into one.
Okay. Oh, are we good? I just wanna
I
make
think we're
sure that
okay.
he's got the,
I think so.
You did lump them into one.
I mentioned them both, but I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
clear enough that.
I think it'll be reflected in the minutes that those are
Okay.
were both.
Okay.
That's fine.
We need flexibility.
Yeah. That's it for old business, I believe.
Okay.
In terms of new business, prepare a short memo. It's been the tradition of the board to at least have a short discussion or sometimes a long discussion on the board officer positions. I am grateful for the leadership of the board. I call on Catherine and Celeste often. Sue calls on me often, which is great. It's the board's decision completely. And the only positions that are required by the ORS are that of the president and the secretary. And I know sometimes we get off kilter in calling the board president, the board chair, and the vice chair, and some of that's just due to me or others forgetting, but technically we are required to have a board president and a board secretary. So.
I looked and I have been board president since 2020. And I am ready to no longer be board president. I have a lot going on in my life. I would like to still be involved in the board, but I'm happy to pass the baton, and so I would like to nominate Kyle Gorman.
I'll second it. If
Good
we get a
idea.
second on a nomination, but I would strongly, be okay with that?
Well, if I can comment, I think we have a very highly functional board right now. And
The board is not going anywhere.
I know, I'm so honored that you would suggest me when everybody here is more qualified than I am to run this ship.
You are so smart.
I'll accept this, but I'm gonna need some help. And so the rest of the board is gonna have to pitch in.
I think we're all not going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I
Need a
accept the
vote?
nomination.
I assume.
You do.
Okay.
I think maybe the vote could just include that, but maybe you want to discuss the other board officer positions.
Yeah.
If you want to make other
So you
changes.
happy being secretary?
Gee, Secretary, it's like, thank you, Skylar, for everything you do. Makes my job simple.
Celeste, you wanna stay on as vice president?
I'm happy to maintain that role.
I figured she'd jump out the window.
I'm happy to do nothing.
I will be happy to do nothing.
Oh, it's not nothing.
I stand on the shoulders
Yeah.
of giants.
Okay, all in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Kyle?
Aye.
Sue?
Hi.
Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Pass the baton.
Congratulations, Kyle.
Oh, we're starting now.
Happening right now, all right, this is exciting.
I guess I need to know where I am. Thank you for your confidence in me. I hope I can live up to it.
It's really not that hard.
Well, it is if I can't find my spot for
You're under new.
board
business.
meeting information. Board meeting information.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Catherine, thank you
Yes, thank
For
you.
everything that
for
you're
5 years of leadership.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
It was pretty calm during this entire 5 years.
Uh-huh.
She made it calm. She brought in the calm.
I
So-
don't know, I
so we
saw
have,
that 5 years ago.
It's 8:45, and
I know.
Isaiah's on overtime right So we have a schedule for, a proposed schedule for the board meetings for the next year. And I guess I'd encourage board to have some input if they have any thoughts or questions about that. The only question I have is, about the December meeting.
We usually skip that
We usually skip it, but I just want to make sure we know that we can always meet in December if it's necessary.
Well, I mean, that also, oh, sorry,
Because it may be with SEC.
I'm looking at spring break too.
Yeah. Spring break, we move virtually everything.
Yeah.
So, any, anxiety about the schedule? Then the staff presentation schedule. And, then the only question I have would periodically, it would be nice to have a presentation from somebody from outside the organization. You know, who that might be.
We were gonna ask the foundation.
We were, yeah.
Yeah,
Put that
that's
on the
right.
schedule.
Yeah, the foundation would be excellent, yeah.
Be happy to find a time that works for them,
That would be great.
coming in.
You don't need to vote on this, right?
I don't think so. I would just make sure you noted, your efforts are appreciated. The length of our meeting over the last year was, reduced by about 30 minutes. It might not be reflected tonight.
But
But it
we had a
jumped
lot-
up a half an hour when I started.
That's right.
So,
Okay, and I think it's a fair discussion to have with the board. It's, you know, we should keep our meetings, you know, as efficient as possible. Race to relaxation. That's
yeah, it's possible you might be jumping ahead, but I'm
fine.
good with it.
Yeah, I'm following the pages.
I just have a flyer in there. This is our, second, experience hosting, Hood to Coast participants and Portland to Coast participants to the walking, teams at the SRC. This year, we're, reformatting it a little bit. Last year, we had offered opportunities to swim and go in the hot tub, and we just found it was a little disjointed and a little bit too much, and we didn't feel like we had necessarily great usage of that part of the program, but folks love having the guaranteed parking spot, the opportunity to shower, get maybe some coffee, hang out for a little bit, wait for their teammates to finish, or to have a space to kind of recover for a little bit. A lot of folks don't have lodging, or there's not enough lodging here for everybody, so many teams do their thing, get food, and then head back to wherever they're going. So our foundation board is really the one that's organizing the volunteer efforts to staff this, and appreciate their efforts. If the board would like to participate in any way, they have shifts starting typically as early as about 2 a.m. That's around the time that the first teams roll into Seaside, but we can find something more manageable during daytime hours if you'd like. Some other just report outs that I wanted to share. Our website was scheduled originally to launch tomorrow, and just because of a couple of revisions that we wanted to ensure we had the opportunity to make, as well as tomorrow is a market day, and as I've found over the last month and a half, market days are very intense for our staff, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough staff resources, people resources to handle questions that came about as a result of the website, as well as support our market efforts. So the website will launch now next Tuesday, a week from today, July 29th. I don't know if the board is interested, but I'd be happy to share the link to the non-public website, and all of our old information has been migrated over. There's still some minor revisions that we're making and reviewing and editing the site, but it looks amazing. We're experiencing already better synergy with our mass notification system, our point-of-sale software, and the website being offered by one platform, and I think it's going to be really great in terms of accessibility and our outreach ability to our patrons and community. The second thing on there, we just wrapped up a very, very great experience with our HR and admin coordinator search. Been through a number of these searches replacing a full-time staff, and they're each unique. This one was unique because we had 42 applicants and many of them were extremely qualified, and we had a really difficult time narrowing the pool of candidates and selecting our preferred candidate, but we made an offer on Friday to that candidate, and she accepted the offer, and she's going to start on August 4th, excuse me, and her name is Savannah Cummings, and right now she works for the city of Warrenton.
What's her last name?
Cummings.
Oh, okay.
So really excited about that. She has a great blend of administrative experience, HR experience, and has worked in a park and recreation organization before. So that was really great. But we had, again, really awesome candidates that we felt really grateful for. A couple other things, again, it's market season, so market starts, well, not start, but we'll be out there tomorrow, 1 to 6.
Isaiah's gonna send out a message, right?
I think Haley actually has it scheduled, so tomorrow's will be a result of Haley, not Isaiah, but yeah, Isaiah did send out that last one, and it definitely worked. We've had great numbers in attendance, and yeah, it's a great thing. Zoe has done a really good job with engagement with vendors, and yeah, it's special, but it is a heavy lift, so those Wednesdays are long for everybody. Have the August board meeting date, as you already know. We'll have a public hearing for SDC, so that'll be part of the agenda. Isaiah will be presenting, that will also be part. And then just on a personal note, I just wanted to thank Catherine for her leadership on the board and being a board president. I know it was easy for her because she's really gifted and a good multitasker and has a great perspective of all that's going on with the district, but I've been able to call on her many times, text her, email her, and ask her for insights and perspective, and she's always been available and been willing to but generously give of her time and her knowledge to better the district and to lead the board, and I appreciate that. And echo what Kyle said, the board has great continuity and cohesion right now, and I really appreciate that. And yes, the meetings are long and there's many questions and there's lots to work through, but I'm really thankful for this group and your dedication to the district. I'll also say, on another personal note, I hit my 10-year anniversary with the district in the last couple of days.
Congratulations.
It was really great, and you've been the board chair for 5 of those years. Mike was probably the board chair for 2 or 3 years of the first year. So, feel grateful.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Feel grateful to have, longevity in this position and continuity, and, I never had a job for 10 years before, so it feels pretty good to be getting to this point. That was it for, my report. Thanks, Mr. Board President. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Board comments. Sue.
I was gonna say, Catherine's always gone last. Let her go first.
I'm going last. She's
No,
going
but
forward.
she's always gone last. It's like, give her, so, well, that was my opinion, so, okay.
Are those your board comments?
I'm still overwhelmed by
You're a little
whatever that was. And I mean, I'm amazed that I kept it together for the entire meeting, except because I just am confused. So my board comment would be, gratitude, the 3 elections, here we are, back in the saddle, moving forward again. I'm grateful for that continuity and the fact that the public apparently supported us as well. But I always am appreciating public comment, but to have nobody here with their hair on fire, saying this is wrong or that's wrong. I mean, it's appreciated that there's some form of public trust for us, and I'm grateful for that. And then I can't not tell you how nice it is that Calvin showed up. I'm really glad that he did that. I did not know him, and, it's nice to put a picture and a face, and I really appreciated that he had, that he showed up to, let us know who he is. sincere appreciation to Doug and John and Luke, who I'm sorry, I still have confusion, but, you know, their expertise, it makes sense, and I understand, and Brandon, wow, I mean, I'm just grateful for the fact that we hired him as a team player, and he's gone back to help us figure out this minutia of figuring out how to make occupancy work, and hats off to him. And then I'm grateful that the fitness center is going to come back to us. I think it'll be interesting to see how the public perceives that, having had an option to step away and see what else is out there. But we're back. I think farmers market is going strong, and I'm grateful for Zoe's leadership in that. I'm simply, you know, and for 10 years, Skylar, that's, congratulations, because that's not been easy. And I appreciate you still being here and a positive attitude toward that, especially as we've turned around what used to be. And we don't need to say anything more about what used to be. And congratulations to our new hire. What a team to be part of. And so I thank Isaiah for his text messages that he's getting out to us. That is appreciated. And it's exciting that we're looking at, you know, all these continual improvements, as well as just maintaining a quality system that we have in place right now with good staff and caring individuals. I have to say, I'm really grateful for this. And
What is that?
it is something, because I showed up to Skylar, I was stuck in my other one. I showed up to Skylar's office, and Haley didn't know who I was. And it wasn't just Haley, there was another employee. And so I asked, can I get a badge so that I belong? And so I think we should all have one. This has no power. There's no power in this badge. I mean, I can't go anywhere. It's just, I look official so I don't scare people. And I think that, I thank you.
The badge doesn't determine whether you belong or not.
Oh, no, but I gotta say, I walked in today and the doors were open, so, and I didn't scare anybody today. So.
I'm happy to badge all of you if you'd like. Yeah, and the lanyard.
They all know I am.
I still want a turquoise one, so I'm not so
I kind of
bright.
like being anonymous.
Well,
I put on my rubber nose and glasses and just walk around.
Anyway, thank you.
Celeste.
I'll keep it short, because Sue already covered all the great contents of this meeting, but I am going to celebrate us. So first of all, to my colleagues who ran and we got elected, and again, it was a breeze and we didn't have to do all this stuff. So yay for us. Yay for Kyle for stepping up and being willing to be our new board chair. Super excited about that. Happy to help play second seat to you. And Catherine, just so much thanks for your 5 years. I feel like I've seen some of the stuff that you've waded through, and I just couldn't appreciate all the work that you've done and the example you set for this board over your 5 years. And Skylar, man, what's 10 years? Holy cow, it's just, it is so great, and the places that you've brought the district, just fantastic, and it's a decade of great service to this community, and I'm grateful for that.
Good, yeah, lots been said. Catherine, I want to thank you. You've been a really solid board president for a number of years, and appreciated your firm hand and solid leadership and patience with me. And who would have thunk it that Skylar would be here after 10 years? My goodness.
Tenacity.
Anyway, I think that's all great. And, I think Kyle is going to make an outstanding board president. He's so loquacious and articulate and knowledgeable. So I think you will do a great job. And I think it was fun the way Calvin walked in and, you know, he's like, you know, he was just doing his job, he was sorry he was late. Didn't even realize we were online, you know, it's like, oh,
That was awesome.
I think that's great.
You thought you were late?
No.
Sure we'll see him
Calvin's
again.
not late.
Yeah.
Oh.
Isaiah's doing a great job over there. And, I think it's great, farmer's market, I've been here a couple times, looking great, bigger crowds, more vendors, we've gotten some really good produce over there. Real good, I hope this occupancy, really does come to fruition and that, Brandon has success with, dealing with the city, and I really have faith that these SDCs will help the Park District over many years. We probably will be gone, I'm sure I will be.
Thank you, Mike.
Gaining ground, you know. Thank you.
Catherine.
Thank you to our presenters tonight for answering all our many questions, and Brandon for hopefully getting us further along with our occupancy permits. Congratulations, Skylar, 10 years, pretty awesome. Super excited for our new HR person to start. I think that will be great. And thank you, Kyle, for taking over.
For failing to say no.
So, the first thing you've got to do is remember, you're leaving in September.
Yes, I am. And I will be gone, actually, Celeste, you'll have to make yourself available. I'll be gone from, well, basically board meeting to board meeting. I'll be at both board meetings, but not much in between. And I'm going to the Middle East and, you know, we'll see what it's like.
I hope you have a safe trip.
I think it'll be safe. I think it'll be fine. I don't actually know how to explain my appreciation for Catherine and for everything that you've done, not just for this district, but the example you set in the community for you and your family and the school district and the Parks District. I'm really glad.
You're gonna make me cry.
But I'm serious. I'm really glad to be in your shadow, even for a minute, because you've done some really remarkable things. And in your tenure as what is it, Scout, board chair, board president? Board president, you know, I'm just reflecting back on tonight and the things that you've accomplished. Just in my short tenure here, I mean, just tonight, we finally have a light at the end of the tunnel for the SRC. We're going to land the plane on the SDC issue. I mean, some people have said that it's taken years to get there, but it's here now because of you, and I appreciate that. It's hard work, it's not easy, and there's no public recognition of what you've done, but we recognize it. So I won't probably be able to hold myself to the same standard as Catherine, but if I get out of line, just whip me back and I'll be fine. Welcome aboard, Savannah. I'm assuming she's going to watch this video.
Well, there's going to be a quiz.
I really appreciate. I think HR is really critical component of any organization, unless you happen to be at a Coldplay concert. And
That was great, Kyle.
but it is really an important position. Calvin, what a rock star! You know, just everything. I had never met him, but everything everybody said about him was just proven true when he walked in the door. It was just awesome, understated awesomeness. And finally, I went up to the community gardens yesterday, and they're really coming along pretty nice. There's a couple of things growing in those planter boxes. It's looking good. So thanks for the community who's doing that, and that's all I have. So, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved, all in favor, say yeehaw.
Yeah.
I actually got to use it.
Yay!